Part 38. Fringe Artists in the Entertainment Industry. Author, Chizu Xiaomao. Chapter 386. Chapter 372-371. Chen Lian is crazy. In the neat kitchen, Chen Lian was shirtless and looked through the refrigerator. There was no food in it except some drinks and fruits. Chen Lian closed the refrigerator and looked back at Li Fuchen, who was resting on the sofa, and asked, "Don't you have anything to eat at home?" Li Fuchen wiped the sweat from his forehead, sat up with his sore body and said, "No, I won't eat at home." Chen Lian. The little fairy really doesn't need to eat. Do you still have the ramen you just had? There is none left. Come on, eat some fruit. Chen Lian washed an apple and gnawed it. It's also good to add some vitamins. After Chen Lian finished chewing an apple, Li Fuchen also rested. He picked up the small black underwear beside the sofa and put it on, and then ran to get the computer. Li Fuchen came back with his laptop in his arms, put it in front of Chen Lian and said, "We need to make a plan." Chen Lian looked at the black box-like laptop in front of him, nodded and said, "You do need to make some plans, but are you too anxious?" Li Fuchen tossed his hair, looked at Chen Lian and said seriously, "I want to make plans for my future, and you and I are taking a big risk. In the future, you will find that there is no risk. Even if this project fails, I will make you a billionaire." After a little installation, Chen Lian took the initiative to turn on the computer and said, "But you must think that I am arrogant, so let's make plans." Li Fuchen suddenly smiled, then nodded seriously, skillfully controlled the computer and began to communicate with Chen Lian about future plans. The two of them were busy working on the computer next to each other for a long time, but took several breaks in the middle. It was around 4 o'clock in the night when Li Fuchen leaned tiredly on Chen Lian's shoulder, looked at him and said, "You are really weird. You clearly don't understand some things, but you are very forward-looking." Chen Lian hugged Li Fuchen and stroked her shoulders and said, "What I have is vision, and what you have is action and execution. We will definitely succeed if we work together." Li Fuchen hummed, and after a long time he suddenly asked, "Did you come to me because you cannot do business in the international market because of your nationality and identity?" Chen Lian paused and asked, "Do you want to hear the truth or lies?" "Truth." Li Fuchen sat up and looked at Chen Lian and said, "I don't like anyone to deceive me, let alone my partners." Chen Lian replied seriously, "The truth is, there are indeed considerations in this regard. Of course, the more important thing is that your ability is recognized by me." "What about lies?" Li Fuchen asked again. Chen Lian smiled and said, "If you tell the truth, you won't be able to hear lies anymore, so go to bed early." Li Fuchen felt a little disappointed. She felt that she might have missed something very important, and that she might never hear it again after today. Early the next morning, Li Fuchen went to work as usual without rest, and Chen Lian also returned to Yangcheng by car. The cooperation between him and Li Fuchen seemed to have entered a period of silence, and everything was waiting for the moment when good news came back from the research laboratory. Li Fuchen talked to Chen Lian last night about a lot of news about competition in audio formats in the international market. Although some people are working hard to promote MP3, Microsoft, Sony, and even Apple are all thinking about how to stop MP3. Therefore, Chen Lian is not fighting alone. In fact, the MP3 format was really popularized because of music players. As long as the release of music players can be postponed, Chen Lian still has time to survive for a while. Li Fuchen is not leaving Samsung now just to go back and keep an eye on the company. As long as someone plans to develop a music player project, she will find a way to stop it. This is difficult for Li Fuchen now, but the difficulty is not that great. Chen Lian is still relatively relieved. Another point is that Samsung is preparing to ship a large number of VCDs recently in order to retaliate for Chen Lian's previous actions in South Korea. Li Fuchen can still communicate with Chen Lian at any time here. Li Fujian seemed to have really figured it out. Since he had no status in the family and was still being targeted, he might as well take advantage of this opportunity to think more about his future. The music player project allowed her to see the possibilities, and the plans Chen Lian told her also allowed her to see the blueprint of a huge business empire. It may not be worse than Samsung in the future. When the new audio format is developed, Chen Lian and Li Fujian will truly merge, and she will come forward to launch the music player and new audio format. At the same time, a new company will be established, and Li Fujian will also establish a research institute abroad and begin to truly enter the international stage. Chen Lian could just hide in the background and make plans. Thinking about it, it really means that the male is in charge and the female is in charge. Chen Lian is also very helpless. Targets are everywhere and sanctions can come at any time. It is so difficult to enter the WTO, let alone a Chinese who wants to sell high-end electronic products to the world. After Chen Lian returned to the factory in his car, he increased investment in research and development funds. Anyway, he was not going to pay dividends this year, so he would invest all in research and development. For those foreign companies, when doing a project of this level, at most they will be given to a small team in the branch, and they will not invest too much money and resources. Although the overall level of Chen Lian's team is not as good as it is, we spend all our resources and money to find more people if we don't have enough talent. I can't believe that a computer can't create an audio format. After Chen Lian stayed in Yangcheng for another 4 or 5 days, he went to Shenzhen. There was one thing he had to do when he came to Guangdong this time. The Miss Universe contest has kicked off its preliminary rounds, and Chen Lian has seen it on TV several times. This time we came for a surprise inspection. In the hotel in Shenzhen, Chen Lian said to Li Shui, "You pretend to be a player and go to the scene tomorrow. It's not convenient for me to go. Pay attention to see if there are any illegal operations." Li Shui had been a reporter for a while and studied this aspect in college, so she immediately understood what Chen Lian meant. "Okay, I'll sign up tomorrow," Li Shui said, paused, and joked, "Teacher Chen, it will be fun if I pass the preliminary round. Then I will come back as a champion." Chen Lian said with a smile, "If that's true, I will find another assistant." "Haha, just kidding, I want to be Teacher Chen's assistant forever," Li Shui said with a smile. Chen Lian smiled and said nothing. An assistant who has no ambition to be a deputy director is not a good assistant. Just listen to this kind of words. Chen Lian and Li Shui explained a few more words and let her go to rest. In less than half an hour, the door of Chen Lian's room was knocked open. The princess quickly squeezed into the room wearing sunglasses. After closing the door, she hugged Chen Lian and said, "You finally remembered me. I have never forgotten you, but I am just too busy." Chen Lian saw the princess dressed in jewels and asked with a smile, "Why are you dressed like this? It doesn't look like your style at all." The princess smiled and said, "I came here with a group of rich ladies, so that the paparazzi would not be discovered." "Very smart," Chen Lian said with a smile. "Are you tired? Let's eat something first." The princess put her arms around Chen Lian's neck and hung her whole body on him and said, "I'm not tired, I just want to eat you." It's not yet certain who will eat who. Chen Lian picked up the princess and walked towards the bedroom. Afterwards, the princess and Chen Lian huddled in a corner of the big bed and listened to music together. The princess listened to her own singing in the headphones and played with this ugly MP3 player in her hand. She didn't think it was very powerful, just that it was novel. "This thing is so small, how did you get the songs in it? I don't even ask you to play the CD," the princess asked curiously. "Imported from the computer, this is only the first generation. Later products can be downloaded directly from the computer," Chen Lian explained casually, remembering that the princess was a singer, and said, "In the future, physical records will become a thing of the past." The princess immediately asked, "Then the singer has no food to eat? Can he only make money by holding concerts?" Chen Lian smiled and said, "Don't be so nervous. That day is still far away, don't worry, and technology is advancing, and so are the ways of making money, just like VCD will not eliminate cinemas." The princess felt relieved and couldn't help pinching Chen Lian and said, "Then what you said is so scary." Chen Lian laughed, hugged the princess and said, "Do you have any plans this year?" "Yes, and there are still a lot. I have to make an album and have a concert tour." The princess leaned into Chen Lian's arms and said, "But there has been nothing much in the past month, and I will only get busy in June. Then after I finish working these days, how about we go to Australia for a few days?" "Real?" "Of course, I haven't taken a vacation for a long time, just because I'm afraid you won't be able to let go of mahjong." "No way. When will you finish your work? I have to make a plan." 2 or 3 days, it will be quick." Early the next morning, when Li Shui ran over to report to Chen Lian, he was slightly surprised when he saw the princess coming out of the bathroom, and then adjusted his attitude and said hello to her. The princess glanced at her and went back to catch up on her sleep. Li Shui looked at Chen Lian and said, "Teacher Chen, I signed up yesterday and I will go to the site today to inquire about the situation." "Well, be careful. If you have any news, just tell me directly," Chen Lian said while drinking coffee. Li Shui nodded and said, "Okay, I'll go now." After Li Shui left, Chen Lian also went out, taking the time to check out the situation in Xiangjiang. At around 10 o'clock, Chen Lian arrived at Xiangjiang and got into Cheng Shifen's car. "Are you worried so you came here to take a look?" Cheng Shifen said with a smile. Chen Lian didn't hide it, and said directly, "Sister Shifen should know better than me what the Xiangjiang entertainment industry is like, but I don't feel reassured if I come to see it." Cheng Shifen smiled bitterly and said, "You still don't believe me? You are just as disgusting as Quarong said." "Haha, he just slandered me." Zhang Quarong, who was sleeping at home, suddenly sneezed, rubbed his nose and went back to sleep. The competition in Hong Kong is held in the TVB building, and the broadcasting rights in Hong Kong also belong to TVB. Miss Universe still attracts a lot of attention in Hong Kong. After all, with this cultural atmosphere, this kind of competition is what I like most. In addition to Miss Universe, there are 2 beauty pageants held every year, one is Miss Hong Kong and the other is Miss Asia. Miss Xiangjiang is from TVB, and Miss Asia is from ATV. Both beauty pageants attract a lot of attention, but overall, Miss Xiangjiang attracts more attention. After Chen Lian came to TVB, he kept a very low profile and did not let everyone know about Cheng Shifen. Chen Lian walked around the studio with a staff sign and a mask. The studio was very busy and no one paid attention to Chen Lian, so he did see the real studio backstage. In the waiting area, Chen Lian saw many beauties from Xiangjiang, all of whom had their own merits and outstanding appearance and temperament. Listening to what they were chatting about together, Chen Lian didn't hear anything wrong. After walking around for a while, Chen Lian felt a little bored and was about to go to the stairwell to take a breath. As soon as he opened the door, he saw a little girl secretly smoking inside. When he saw Chen Lian come in, he immediately put out his cigarette, looked at the frowning Chen Lian and said, "Sorry, I didn't know you couldn't smoke here." Chen Lian didn't say anything. After all, he was not a real staff member, but the girl in front of him was too familiar. She was Lu Piaopia. Why did she come to participate in the Miss Universe contest? However, The King of Comedy has not yet been filmed at this time, and she has not officially debuted yet, so it is not strange to participate. Chen Lian said out of good intentions, "You are a contestant, smoking at this time will affect you." I was a little nervous, so I came here to smoke one. Seeing that Chen Lian didn't talk about himself, Zhang Beizi relaxed a little and said playfully, "Are you from the mainland? Your Mandarin is of good standard." Chen Lian nodded and said, "Yes, to supervise the fairness of the competition." Supervision. Zhang Beizi was slightly surprised, as if he had met an important person. Zhang Beizi looked at Chen Lian wearing a mask and felt that he looked familiar but did not recognize it, so he asked curiously, "What are you supervising?" Thinking that Zhang Beizi happened to be a contestant, Chen Lian asked, "Have you encountered any unspoken rules or anything like that?" Zhang Beizi immediately shook his head, looked at him and said, "This time it is strict. I heard that it is cooperating with your mainland CCTV. The boss is still Chen Lian. No one dares to mess around." Chen Lian smiled and said, "Why?" Zhang Beizi said in surprise, "Chen Lian, you don't know. Even the Wang family was beaten by him, and even the British royal family dared to scold him. Who dares to provoke him? I heard he is crazy." Chen Lian, "You are crazy, your whole family is crazy." Chen Lian felt extremely unlucky, rolled his eyes at Zhang Beizi and left. Zhang Beizi didn't know where he had offended him, so he smelled it in the stairwell and ran to wait. Chen Lian got some information from Zhang Beizi, and combined with what he saw in the waiting room before, he probably knew that Cheng Shifen really managed it well. Since this is the case, there is no need to hide it, just show your face and let them know that crazy Chen is coming. Please be careful, otherwise you will be beaten. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 387. Chapter 373-372. Really going crazy. In the waiting area of the Miss Universe competition, Zhang Beizi saw the strange man he met in the stairwell again, and was about to say hello when he saw him take off his mask and walk towards the judge's seat. Zhang Beizi stared at Chen Lian, who had taken off his mask, and thought to himself, "It's over, will I be beaten?" Chen Lian didn't take Zhang Beizi's claim that he was a lunatic to heart. Why should he care about a little girl? Over at the judge's table, Cheng Shifen saw Chen Lian approaching, so she took the initiative to greet him and said, "Have you finished your private interview incognito? How about it? There's nothing wrong with it?" Chen Lian smiled and said, "Sister Shifen, I just wander around casually." Okay. Cheng Shifen rolled her eyes at Chen Lian angrily and said, "The entertainment industry in Xiangjiang is very chaotic, but it is also very eye-catching. It knows who can and cannot be messed with." "Am I the one who can't be messed with?" Chen Lian asked with a smile. Cheng Shifen nodded and said, "Mr. Tang's clients are all wealthy families in Xiangjiang. They know your strength very well. People who are interested have already known it. And you don't know what your reputation is." Chen Lian, "I don't have a good reputation, but the damn sunglasses king doesn't mind it and spreads rumors about me every day. But it doesn't matter, he didn't take the king of sunglasses seriously before, and he won't take him seriously now. He's just a director, it's embarrassing to be serious with him. Chen Lian is now a man who is ready to challenge a big company like Sony, so he cannot lower his standards." Chen Lian chatted with Chen Shifen for a few words, and then said hello to the judges. He also saw Miss Xiangjiang from the previous years, but it was just a bit familiar and he couldn't remember this person. The judges were very polite when they saw Chen Lian. TVB executives also came over to meet with Chen Lian. Chen Lian chatted with them for a few words, looked at the time, and planned to leave. Cheng Shifen came out to see him off and said with a smile, "Uncle Lu said he wanted to meet you before. I don't have time this time, I'll come and visit next time." Chen Lian still admires him. He has done so much charity in the mainland and accumulated billions of Hong Kong dollars in charity. Chen Lian felt that he should do more charity in the future to accumulate virtue for himself and avoid being called crazy. "You came in such a hurry this time and didn't even have time to meet Korong. If he knew about it, he would definitely scold you," Cheng Shifen said with a smile. Chen Lian thought for a moment and said, "Isn't he very free recently? You can go back and ask him if he wants to travel to Australia together." "Okay, I'll ask him tonight," Cheng Shifen said miserably. "I'm very busy here, but you went on vacation." "Haha, I'm pretty good at it. When leaving the studio, Chen Lian also saw Zhang Beizi, but Chen Lian had no expression on his face and went out directly. Zhang Beizi looked at Chen Lian's face just now, and suddenly said something bad in his heart. He looked at the time again and saw that his number was relatively late. He hesitated and chased after him. It's not that I want to hug him, I'm just worried that I won't even make it into the preliminary round. After Chen Lian chatted with Cheng Shifen for a few more words at the door of TVB, he was about to get in the car and leave, but as soon as the car door opened, Zhang Beizi ran over. Looking at Zhang Beizi running over, Chen Lian probably guessed it, so he stopped and waited for her to come over, then said to her in front of Cheng Shifen, "Come to apologize." Zhang Beizi's face turned red, he nodded and said very apologetically, "I didn't mean it, everyone said that, so I just followed it." Chen Lian smiled and said, "Now you know I'm not crazy. Okay, don't worry about it. Go back and compete hard. I hope to see you in the finals." After Chen Lian finished speaking, he said hello to Cheng Shifen, got in the car and left. Zhang Beizi looked at the car leaving and finally breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. He had just returned to Hong Kong and had just shot an advertisement and needed a chance. Fortunately, he was not ruined by his unrestrained words. Cheng Shifen looked at Zhang Beizi for a few times and nodded slightly, but she was not optimistic about whether she could achieve any results in the Miss Universe competition. She looks innocent, but she is too young, and her temperament is not very good. Beauty pageants are not entertainment and movie making. If you have a good-looking face, you will have a chance. Beauty pageants are not just about looks. Zhang Beizi looked at Cheng Shifen with a sweet smile, and immediately seized the opportunity to take the initiative to flirt with her and start chatting with her. Cheng Shifen was also willing to chat with her and was curious about what happened between her and Chen Lian. The two of them walked into TVB together. One was willing to help, and the other was smart enough to seize the opportunity. The atmosphere was quite harmonious. Chen Lian went back to the hotel directly after returning to Shenzhen in the afternoon. There was no problem with the Miss Universe contest in Xiangjiang, so there should be no problems here in the mainland. After all, it was China television media who personally brought the matter to an end, and the CCTV team was still watching. Who dared to mess with it? Sure enough, when Chen Lian was chatting with the princess about travel plans in the evening, Li Shui came back to report on the day's work. As Chen Lian thought, there was nothing fishy about it. Hearing Li Shui's return, Chen Lian also breathed a sigh of relief. The beauty pageant is the easiest for the public to associate with it, and it is Miss Universe. Chen Lian doesn't want to cause any scandal. Otherwise, it would be embarrassing and would be thrown into Grandma's house. After Li Shui left, the princess immediately hugged Chen Lian's arm and asked, "Are you done with your work now? When will we set off?" Chen Lian thought for a while and said, "The day after tomorrow, I will go to the site to see it. I will go to Xiangjiang early the day after tomorrow, and then set off for Australia." "Okay, no, I have to call my brother and ask him to bring a pair of mahjong." The princess got up and ran to get her mobile phone to call Zhang Guorong. Chen Lian couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth. Sure enough, these two people were playing mahjong together. Alas, this trip was probably spent playing mahjong in the hotel. The next day, Chen Lian went to the competition venue of Shenzhen Station to show his face, paid attention to the competition situation, and left after there were no problems. On the third day, Chen Lian and the princess returned to Xiangjiang to meet with Zhang Guorong, and then set off for Australia together. "On the first day of my trip to Australia, I got off the plane and went back to the hotel to rest and then play mahjong together. On the second day of my trip to Australia, I watched kangaroos for 2 hours and then played mahjong together. On the third day of my trip to Australia, I went to the beach to watch high barbecue, and then played mahjong together." Day 4 of Australia trip. 5 days. 6 days. On the seventh day, Chen Lian finally compromised and stopped urging them to go out for a walk and start the project directly. The sound of playing mahjong was immediately heard in the hotel room. Chen Lian looked at Li Shui, who was sitting at his boss's house, and said, "Don't lose again today. Your salary has been advanced to next year." Li Suiden felt pressured. It was so miserable to play mahjong with his boss. He didn't know how to play Xiangjiang mahjong and had to pay for his salary. Zhang Quorong couldn't help but said, "Stop scaring the little girl, so as not to blow up Jingguan again later." The princess immediately said unhappily, "I won this with my skills." Chen Lian smiled and said nothing. He reached under the table and touched the princess's black silk feet to give himself a little good luck halo. The princess glanced at Chen Lian and put her feet back. She was lucky and couldn't be taken away. The princess moved a little louder. Zhang Quorong noticed it, and couldn't help but scolded, "You two are crazy, please don't be here. Jingguan, why are you wearing stockings while playing mahjong, just to take advantage of this ugly man?" Several people stopped playing mahjong immediately. Li Shui took a curious look, then pulled her legs back. She was also wearing stockings. Chen Lian, this is really embarrassing. How can I be the boss in the future? 60,000, Li Shui played a card, pretended not to see anything just now, looked at Chen Lian calmly and said, "Teacher Chen, it's your turn." Chen Lian said "Oh," touched the card, played it, and then gave it to the princess. Not interesting. No black stockings, still losing money. It's so boring, the only fun of playing mahjong is gone. Although this trip was a bit boring, Chen Lian felt that it was still quite relaxing, except for the occasional scolding by Zhang Quorong. After flying back to Xiangjiang, Chen Lian stayed for a few days, met some old friends, and then returned to the mainland. Most of May has passed, and if Chen Lian doesn't come back, Bai Qing will call and scold her. In the studio, Chen Lian listened to Bo Qing talking about his inspiration, nodded and said, "Human nature is too complicated. I don't know how you came up with this theme, but it is very similar to the 7 deadly sins." Bo Qing was a little excited. He looked at Chen Lian and said, "Over the last year, I have seen too many different sides of human nature. They may be good fathers or husbands at ordinary times, but under certain circumstances they will always expose the truest side of human nature, whether it is cold-blooded or cowardly." A series of paintings. That's fine. Where do we start? Not a series, but it starts with you. Chen Lian pointed at himself and asked, "What do you mean?" Bai Qing looked at Chen Lian and said seriously, "You are my material. You are more complicated and changeable than many people I have met. You are hypocritical, sincere, passionate, affectionate, greedy, and generous. You are simply the most complex and contradictory person in the world." Chen Lian, it sounds like a monster from hell. However, Chen Lian was still willing to cooperate with Bai Qing. He was just a model, and it wasn't the first time. At least this time he was wearing clothes. After Chen Lian agreed to Bo Qing, he made a joking call to Lu Ye and asked him to adjust his schedule. He would join the team at the end of June and could shoot other people's scenes first. There was no surprise for Lu Ye. He had long been prepared for the fact that Chen Lian would not be able to join the crew on time. The shooting of a movie does not take place in 2 days, so it would not have much impact if Chen Lian joined the crew late. Chen Lian then arranged other things, and after he was busy with all this, he collaborated with Bo Qing to create in the studio. Bai Qing's style this time feels very broken and dreamy, but like the theme she mentioned, it is contradictory and complex. Chen Lian in the picture is like a broken mirror. Chen Lian on each mirror has a different emotion and posture. These broken mirrors are combined to form a brand new Chen Lian. Every time Bo Qing finished painting a part, Chen Lian felt as if he had been stripped of a layer of disguise. He suddenly understood what Bai Qing meant. Rebirth amplified all the dark sides in his heart, but the previous morality was restricting him. Contradiction, ultimate contradiction. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu Xiaomao. Chapter 388. Chapter 374-373. Another Chen Lian. Green smoke was lingering, and the grey soot was fluttering in the breeze, and finally fell to the ground and mixed with the soil. On the street in the evening, Chen Lian walked through the crowds like a confused child. Everything around him had nothing to do with him. Strange people, strange streets, and a strange myself. Chen Lian kept walking forward with his head lowered in the crowd, walking very fast but not knowing where he was going. Behind him, Bai Qing, who was wearing a black dress with oil paint on it, followed silently, just looking at his back, not daring to call him or stop for fear of losing him. Bo Qing's painting was finished, but Chen Lian was confused. Just like the painting, the glass shattered to the ground, and each fragment reflected a completely different Chen Lian. Which fragment of Chen Lian is the real one? Chen Lian doesn't know, neither does Bo Qing, maybe no one knows. On the street in the evening, Chen Lian had confusion in his deep eyes. He looked at everyone who passed by him. From their eyes, Chen Lian also saw confusion. This is an era of diversification. Rapid industrialization has destroyed everything in the past. People's chaotic hearts have been washed away by the torrent of the times, causing all kinds of worries and confusion. Chen Lian suddenly felt that he had finally integrated into this era, completely integrated into this era. Like all other living beings, he stood confused at the intersection of time and did not know where to go. Chen Lian stood there for a long time, and Bo Qing stood behind him for a long time, like two sculptures, like two nails, nailed here. When the first street light turned on, Chen Lian raised his head and looked at the warm yellow light, feeling a conflicting feeling of sadness and joy lingering in his heart. His future has always been in his past. From the 1990s to the future 20s, it is both the future and the past. Chen Lian suddenly sighed, looked back at Bai Qing and said, "Go back, I'm leaving to Shanghai." Bo Qing couldn't see Chen Lian's face clearly, and stood there silently looking at him. The orange paint on the black skirt was like scarlet sparks that were about to ignite her. "Have you found yourself? Do you want to leave or stay?" Chen Lian squinted his eyes and looked at Bo Qing. The noisy sounds around him caused him to have auditory hallucinations, as if he heard Bo Qing saying in his ear, "I know where you come from." The flashing red light on the black light stand suddenly turned green, and the still crowd suddenly started to move, forming a torrent between Chen Lian and Bo Qing. Chen Lian suddenly felt scared when he saw Bo Qing, and couldn't help but take a step back. The flow of people disappeared. Drop. The ship's whistle sounded on the Suzhou River. Chen Lian stood on the bow of the ship, looking at the turbid river water, and followed the crowd down the deck. Mr. Zhou has not seen Chen Lian for a long time. Chen Lian, who was supposed to join the group in July, disappeared for a month. No one knows where he went. All I know is that he left a letter saying he would come back. When Mr. Zhou saw Chen Lian getting off the boat, he ran towards him, but stopped halfway. Chen Lian at this time made her feel very strange, so strange that it was as if she had never known him before. His originally strong figure had become extremely thin, and his sunken collarbone could be seen under his thin blue-gray t-shirt. Chen Lian was carrying a black travel bag. His eyes were slightly sunken, but his eyes were extremely bright. Mr. Zhou slowly walked towards Chen Lian, stretched out his hand and put it between his eyebrows and rubbed it gently with his hand. Chen Lian raised his hand and grabbed Mr. Zhou's hand, leading her and disappearing to the dock. In the small and cramped hotel with a faint musty smell, Mr. Zhou looked at Chen Lian's thin calf and looked at the wound on it. He carefully held it and asked, "How did you do this?" Chen Lian glanced at the wound and said calmly, "I fell down the mountain." "Does it hurt?" "It hurt at the time, but I can't feel it now." "Where have you been?" "There are many places that I didn't dare to go before." There should have been a Chen Lian carrying a skull bag on his back, a red brick house, and a big white dog. Chen Lian always felt that something was missing in his heart. It wasn't until he went to these places that he realized that subconsciously he had never dared to go. He was afraid. Mr. Zhou looked at Chen Lian's face and said, "I feel that you are different." Chen Lian nodded silently, looked at Mr. Zhou's worried eyes and said, "I'm sorry for making you worry, just treat me as me to practice." Mr. Zhou held Chen Lian in his arms and smelled his body. He smelled the familiar smell on his neck, and his heart slowly relaxed. "It's still him." Pa. The lamp was turned off, and the room fell into darkness, except for the steady breathing of the two people. Early the next morning, Chen Lian woke up, got dressed, went next door and knocked on Lu Ye's door. Lu Ye was wearing a white vest. After opening the door, he asked Chen Lian to find a place to sit by himself, then went out with a basin to brush his teeth and wash his face. Chen Lian looked at the stuffed ashtray on Lu Ye's bedside table, lit a cigarette and sat on the edge of the bed, smoking quietly. After smoking a cigarette, Lu Ye came back in high spirits. As soon as he saw Chen Lian, he said, "You are finally here. If you don't come, I will replace you. Your company only gave me half of the money. I can hardly survive." As he spoke, Lu Ye also took out the shriveled cigarette case, lit a cigarette for himself and said, "But you feel so good now. The feeling you gave me before always had traces of imitation, but now it feels much more natural." Chen Lian nodded and smiled, put the cigarette butt into the ashtray and said, "It took so long, let's start filming today." "Okay, do you still remember the script?" Chen Lian nodded his head and said, "I remember it, and it's even clearer than before. It's become a complete movie." Lu Ye didn't know why and said with a smile, "Haha, artists have rich imaginations." Chen Lian smiled slightly, stood up, and said, "Let's change places to live today. I'm back, so I don't have to save money. This is the second good news I've heard today. There will be a third one." Chen Lian looked at Lu Ye, who was still wearing big pants, patted his shoulder and went out. Lu Ye looked at Chen Lian's back with some surprise, feeling that this guy had changed a lot in the 2 months since he disappeared. But it doesn't matter, the most important thing is to be able to boot normally. At the door of the hotel, Chen Lian opened the door of the Audi and got in. Then he waved to Mr. Zhou, who was still in a daze, and said, "Get in the car." Oh, Mr. Zhou quickly ran over and got in the car. Watching Chen Lian skillfully start the ignition, he said with some surprise, "Don't you know how to drive?" "It's him who doesn't know it, it's not that I don't know it." Chen Lian patted the steering wheel and said, "This old antique is quite powerful. Do you want to buy another car?" Mr. Zhou pursed his lips and felt that Chen Lian was even more strange. He silently put on his seat belt and said, "I quite like this car." After Chen Lian skillfully shifted gears and started, he caught up with Lu Ye's car in front. Soon we arrived at the shooting location. Chen Lian stopped the car and turned off the engine. He got out of the car and looked at the dark sky and busy Suzhou River. He breathed in the air with a hint of fishy smell. It felt really wonderful. Only at this moment did the world appear so real before my eyes. Lu Ye was busy making preparations, and Chen Lian was also getting familiar with his props. As soon as he put on a grey cardigan and sweater, he rode on his motorcycle and said to Mr. Zhou, "Come up here and walk through the play to get a feel for it." Mr. Zhou, who was wearing a ponytail and a red sportswear, got into the back seat. As soon as he sat down, Chen Lian twisted the accelerator and started the car. Mr. Zhou grabbed the armrest behind him and did not dare to reach out to hug Chen Lian, as if he was facing a stranger and was embarrassed to be so close. The feeling of reunion after a long absence last night made her ignore a lot of things. Only today did she realize that Chen Lian was really different from before. At least he wouldn't ride out as soon as he sat down. Chen Lian rode the bike in silence, feeling the wind blowing in his ears. He liked everything so much now. Mr. Zhou seemed to feel the excitement in Chen Lian's heart, and tentatively stretched out a hand to grab a corner of the jacket. Chen Lian felt nothing and came back after riding for a while. Lu Ye was also ready at this time. He looked at Chen Lian and said, "Now there's only one scene left for you that hasn't been filmed yet. The shooting will be very intense. You'll be fine." Chen Lian smiled and said, "Of course it's no problem. Okay, let's get started." Chen Lian restrained his emotions, suppressed his excitement, looked at the slowly flowing Suzhou River, and immersed himself in the role. Mata was leaning on the stone railing by the river and chatting with a group of friends. Suddenly, there was a roar of motorcycles in the distance, and a friend appeared in the camera on a green motorcycle. Mata and a group of friends gathered around and curiously asked where the car came from. Stolen. The answer was not beyond Motor's expectation. He was the first to ride on the bike, and when he put his hands on the handles, he felt that he liked this feeling. "I just turned the accelerator and rushed out. The friends around me were instantly thrown away. I felt the speed brought by the motorcycle, the feeling of the wind blowing on my face, and my dry and numb heart finally came alive, and the blood continued to flow." Of surge. This feeling made him obsessed. Listening to his friends chasing and shouting behind him, Mata laughed and looked back at them. Then he turned his head and continued to twist the throttle to make the motorcycle go faster. Soon the scene ended, and Chen Lian rode the motorcycle back again. The plot of Suzhou River is very fragmented and the storyline is very simple, but many fragmented scenes in it are full of unique romantic poetry. Lu Ye likes this method of expression very much. The picture is very grainy and has a strong sense of the times. The shaky camera is like a microcosm of this era. He pays great attention to the feeling presented by the actors, and is not so picky about the plot. He likes Chen Lian's performance just now, and it feels better than Chen Lian's previous audition. Or more natural. The crew changed the scene. Chen Lian did not drive this time. Instead, he rode on his motorcycle and said to Mr. Zhou, "Are you going to drive there or take my car?" Mr. Zhou shook his head and said, "I want to drive there." "Okay, I'll see you later." Chen Lian turned the accelerator and set off first. Mr. Zhou stood there and looked at Chen Lian's back. Lu Ye noticed her mood and came over and said proactively, "What's wrong with you?" "He is so strange," Mr. Zhou said. Lu Ye smoked a cigarette and said, "Maybe it's to help you get in shape. Your feelings were too strong when you saw him yesterday. Will being a little stranger help you both get into character?" "I hope so." Mr. Zhou was a little confused and turned around to drive. The following scene is the first meeting between Mata and Mudan. Mata is a delivery man who delivers goods from one end of the city to the other. The things he delivers are very special. But Mata never asks and is very tight-lipped about delivery matters. Many people like to ask him for delivery. It's just that this time the goods to be delivered are very special. It's a person. Based on the information, Mata rode to his destination, called his employer, and saw the back of a girl. "I saw her, she has two pigtails, right?" "Yes, I'm over here." Mudan's father used to be in the wine business and was very wealthy. But after the divorce, he indulged in liquor and women. Every time he brought a woman home, he asked Mata to deliver the peony to his aunt's house. Mudan, who was wearing a red sportswear and pigtails, walked into a canteen. Mata drove the car and parked it at the door, just as Mudan came out. "Where do you want me to sit?" Mudan was carrying a black backpack, putting his hands in his pockets and looking at the motor. Mata raised his chin and said, "Sit behind me and put on your helmet." Mutin came over and sat on the back seat with a pout. Mata looked back at her with his helmet in hand and said, "You can't do this, sit down." Mutin took the helmet, crossed her legs and easily put it on the other side of the car and put the helmet on. The motor waited for her to sit down before starting the motorcycle. The motor was riding very slowly, and the roar of the motorcycle was loud. Mutin's expression was very bored, and looking at the motor sideways, he felt even more bored. Mata asked without looking back, "What are you looking at?" "I'm looking at you," Peony's voice sounded in Mata's ears, clear and innocent. "What do I have to see?" "It doesn't work even if you look at it." Mutin glanced at the Suzhou River next to her and asked, "Do you usually drive so slowly?" Mata asked subconsciously, "What's wrong?" Peony said with a hint of disgust, "It's boring." "Why are you so tired?" "It's just boring. When you drive a motorcycle, you have to act like you're driving a motorcycle." Mutin found it boring, and even felt that Mata was boring. Mata thought this little girl was very funny, so he said, "Hurry up, I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it." "You can't stand it? Then let's try." "Just try it." The motor sped up, and the breeze blowing across her face blew up Mutin's braid, and the motorcycle became bumpy. A smile appeared on Mutin's face, like a child who got a toy. When the car stopped and the scene ended, Mr. Zhou looked at Chen Lian and suddenly remembered the night in Suzhou. "At that time, I was like a peony and told Chen Lian that I wanted to try it." Chen Lian turned his head and looked at Mr. Zhou and smiled. At that moment, Mr. Zhou seemed to have returned to the past. "I am full of curiosity about this man and want to explore and enter his world." Mr. Zhou tilted his head and looked at Chen Lian. For a moment, he didn't know whether he had really become a stranger, or whether he was deliberately using this method to help himself find his state. But no matter what the outcome is, Mr. Zhou wants to try again, even if it means getting to know him again and entering Chen Lian's world again. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 389. Chapter 375-374. I will still fall in love with you like a peony. In the old building, Mata walked towards his aunt's house with Peony. Mata's expression was cold, and Mudan's expression was expressionless, as if they were two complete strangers. "But it is indeed someone I just met." When they walked around the corner of the stairs, Mata noticed that Mudan's shoelaces were untied, so he grabbed her and squatted in front of her to tie the loose shoelaces. Mudan looked at the man who lowered his head to tie her shoelaces, and felt as if something had hit her heart. When Mata stood up, her expressionless face finally showed a trace of life. Mata turned around and walked inside. When he saw that Mudan didn't follow, he turned back to urge him. The expression on Mudan's face returned to its original state, and she followed Mata to her aunt's house. "Send people to the motor and leave." "But Mudan's father will still call him, and Mata will still come to pick up Mudan." This was the second time she came to pick up Mudan. Mudan quickly went down the stairs when she heard the sound of motorcycles outside. The hurried footsteps sounded like she couldn't wait to meet Mata in her heart. When she came to the door, Mudan stopped, straightened her braids before opening the door and walking out. Mudan got on the motorbike and looked at his profile, always telling him to take a detour. Peony likes to go for a ride and to be with Motor. In the alley late at night, dim lights shone down, and Mata led Peony under the street lights. Mudan hugged Mata tightly, her little face pressed against his back, with a smile on her face and shining eyes. When the car stopped at the end of the alley, Lu Ye's shout came to his ears. Mr. Zhou did not let go of Chen Lian and said in his ear, "Take me for a ride. I also want to see the Suzhou River." Chen Lian didn't say anything, he just put one foot on the ground, twisted the accelerator, squeezed the brake, turned around, and left the set with Mr. Zhou. Wang Yu, who was carrying the camera, heard their conversation and did not stop filming. Instead, he asked the master who was pulling his motorcycle to catch up quickly. With the camera chasing him behind him, Chen Lian was a little excited, and Mr. Zhou also laughed happily, opening his arms and looking at the night sky with a happy smile. Wang Yu recorded the scene later and felt that the scene was even more beautiful than Lu Ye's storyboard. It's just that Chen Lian's speed was too fast, and the camera soon couldn't capture it. Chen Lian and Mr. Zhou in the camera disappeared little by little into the darkness. The evening breeze from Suzhou River smells of motor oil, and the green river water turns black at night, like a moving ink ribbon. Mr. Zhou stood by the river, looking at the lights in the distance and shouting happily. Chen Lian leaned on the motorcycle and didn't know what she was happy about. Just like Mata doesn't know what Mutin is happy about. Chen Lian smoked a cigarette quietly and looked at her. When Master Zhou stopped and turned to look at him, Chen Lian could really see the happiness from the bottom of her heart in her eyes. What are you happy about? I don't know. Mr. Zhou smiled brightly, as if he wanted to light up the dark night. Chen Lian has never seen her smile so happily. Mr. Zhou walked up to Chen Lian and hugged him and said, maybe it's because, no matter what you become, I will fall in love with you again. Chen Lian's fingers holding the cigarette trembled for a moment, then returned to normal, flicked the cigarette butt away, patted young Master Zhou on the back and said, I am who I am, I have always been me. Yeah. Mr. Zhou hugged Chen Lian and rubbed his chin. Brave and passionate, this is what Chen Lian feels most about Mr. Zhou, and what makes him most attracted to him. She is like the wind at night, whether you like it or not, it will blow over your cheek and create waves in your heart. In the dark night sky, the round moon hangs high. At this night, many people are looking up at the moon. Bai Qing was sitting in the courtyard of the studio, with lights on in the room behind him. Ji Fa was sitting in front of the painting and watching silently. Isn't he back yet? Ji Fa suddenly turned his head and looked at Bai Qing and asked. Bai Qing, dressed in white, said in a cold voice, in Shanghai. Ji Fa's eyes lit up slightly. He walked out of the room and looked at Bai Qing and asked, why did he leave? What happened to you? Bai Qing raised his head and looked at Ji Fa and said, it's nothing, maybe he has some insights. Ji Fa frowned and didn't like such a riddle, so he knelt down and looked into Bai Qing's eyes and said, what on earth happened to you? Bai Qing was silent for a while and said, I don't know. When I finished the painting, he looked at the painting and was silent for a long time. Then he left and disappeared for 2 months. Ji Fa turned his head and glanced at the painting again, and finally sighed. The painter is not crazy, but the model is crazy. How can this be justified? Ji Fa scratched his hair irritably and said, you don't even know how many things have happened recently. I'm going to Shanghai to find him. Bai Qing hummed, leaning on the recliner and looking at the moon in the sky. At this time, Ji Fa was not the only one who wanted to find Chen Lian. Li Fuchen, who was far away in Huizhou, was almost furious. If Chen Lian disappears for a month, she will go crazy. Just after confirming the cooperation, the partner disappeared. Li Fuchen almost let Samsung's VCD directly enter into a price war with Leixin. Just kill Leixin directly. However, Li Fuchen held back in the end and waited for a month until Chen Lian finally showed up. Li Fuchen wants to meet Chen Lian now and ask him what he wants to do. Chen Lian has not forgotten that he still has so many things to do, but now he just wants to finish filming the movie and concentrate on finishing one thing before thinking about other things. He needs time to adapt to himself, or to the people around him. Chen Lian didn't see anyone on the crew. No matter whether it was Ji Fa or Li Fuchen, Chen Lian just asked them to wait until he finished filming. The two women who had been rejected suddenly felt a sense of sympathy for each other when they saw Chen Lian riding away with Mr. Zhou on his motorcycle. No, to be precise, I felt like I had met a fool. Ji Fa looked at Li Fuchen, thinking of what happened in Seoul before, and felt a little unhappy. But Li Fuchen didn't think so much and said to her directly, You are his manager, right? Let's talk. Jifa pulled down the sunglasses on his face and said, what do we have to talk about? Li Fujian said, how about we talk about Chen Lian? Jifa pushed back her sunglasses, looked at her and said, this is the only topic left, but I'm very interested. Jifa and Li Fujian left together. Chen Lian didn't care what they said together, he just wanted to finish filming. Chen Lian rode a bicycle with Mr. Zhou and acted out a love story, or really love, in front of the camera. No one could tell whether it was an act or real, but Mr. Zhou was sure that he was not an act. It doesn't matter whether it's on or off the show, Mr. Zhou only has Chen Lian in his eyes. No matter whether this man will deceive himself like Mata, she will be like Peony. The shots of Suzhou River are very fragmented, and many plots of the movie are completed by narration. Although Chen Lian can remember the movie in his mind, he still can't tell which part he is shooting when filming. The scenes of himself riding a bicycle have been filmed dozens of times. Chen Lian doesn't know which scenes will be retained in the end, and maybe Lu Ye doesn't know either. Chen Lian was very cooperative and took the photo very quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was almost a month ago. There was only one last scene left in the movie that was not shot. Chen Lian played a corpse for the first time. When water poured down from his head, he couldn't help but shudder. It's so cold. Chen Lian couldn't help but rub his arms. Lu Ye said with a smile, I heard Wang Xiao's Huai say that when you were filming extremely cold weather, you didn't feel cold even if you held an ice cube. Now you feel cold even when you are showered with water. Chen Lian smiled and said, who says I don't dislike it? I just fainted before I had a chance to say it. Lu Ye burst out laughing, looked at Chen Lian and said, it's hard to imagine how you managed to capture the extreme cold. Chen Lian shook the water drops on his hand and said, don't even think about it. After the last shot is taken, Mr. Zhou will probably be even colder than me. Lu Ye turned his head and looked over. Mr. Zhou was also shocked and couldn't help but fidget. Is it possible to pour cold water on it in the middle of the night to keep it from getting cold? Chen Lian and Mr. Zhou couldn't help laughing when they looked at each other, and then lay down together. Infatuated people want to be together even after death. Chen Lian lay there with his palm on Mr. Zhou's arm, using his palm to give her a little warmth. Soon Lu Ye shouted to turn on the camera. Chen Lian closed his eyes and wondered how they acted and how they filmed it. All his senses were concentrated in the palm of his hand. Mr. Zhou's pulse was beating, as if all his emotions were written on his palm. Chen Lian held it slightly, and Mr. Zhou also held Chen Lian's hand with his backhand, completely forgetting that the camera was still filming. Until they heard Lu Ye's voice and were pulled up, their hands were still holding each other. Chen Lian and Mr. Zhou smiled at each other, then hugged each other and used their own body temperature to warm each other's bodies. Suzhou River is the turning point in Zhou Gong's acting career, and also the turning point between her and Chen Lian. In the past, there was too much alienation and desire, but now the original feeling has been found again. In the warm bathtub, Chen Lian held Mr. Zhou in his arms and listened to her talk about irrelevant trivial matters. He suddenly asked curiously, what do you like about me now? Mr. Zhou turned his head and looked into Chen Lian's eyes and said, I don't know either, but I will fall in love with you uncontrollably. Have you poisoned me? You are obviously so bad. Chen Lian didn't know what he was thinking as he held her. He didn't answer Mr. Zhou's question, but just felt that he was very lucky. After a while, Chen Lian suddenly woke up and looked at the blushing young Master Zhou and her restless little hands. Why are you driving slower? We've been driving for more than 10 minutes. Are you still warming up the car? The accelerator handle is in your hand. If you want to go faster, just pump it yourself. I want to go 180 an hour. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 390. Chapter 376-375. Go see a doctor. In the exquisite and luxurious restaurant, Chen Lian cut the steak and ate it slowly. The tender beef was fried just right and had a great taste. Li Fuchen and Ji Fa sat opposite Chen Lian, both looking at Chen Lian carefully. Ji Fa in particular clearly felt that Chen Lian was different from the past. In the past, Chen Lian was a huge sand dune. Anyone could grab a handful of beautiful sand and put it in his pocket, or he could lie on the sand and bask in the sun comfortably. Now Chen Lian has become a mountain. It looks very close and reliable, but you can't get close. You can only stand at the foot of the mountain and look at him, hoping that he will lower his head and look at you. Chen Lian put down the knife and fork in his hand, wiped the corner of his mouth and said, "Let's talk about it one by one. Why are you coming to me in such a hurry?" Li Fuchen and Ji Fa looked at each other. After hesitating for a while, Li Fuchen spoke first. "Samsung has started the music player project. I was stuck for a while trying to find a way, but now it's started." Chen Lian hummed, crossed his legs and lit a cigarette. The blue smoke filled the air, making it difficult to see his eyes. Chen Lian said in a hoarse voice, "Let them do it. Lixin's research has produced results, and the finished product will be out soon. The size of normal songs is 1/3 smaller than the MP3 format, and the sound quality is better." Li Fuchen said worriedly, "Even if we release it first, it will be difficult to compete with Samsung. We don't have any influence overseas. Really excellent products don't need to worry about these." Chen Lian flicked the ashes of his cigarette and suddenly felt that many of his previous practices were funny. The booming development of the internet and people's acceptance and desire for new technology products are difficult to offset. Chen Lian is confident that he can make his music player available to the world. Seeing Chen Lian's confident look, Li Fuchen frowned and asked, "What is your plan?" "It's not convenient to say it now. You can go back and wait for my news." After Chen Lian finished speaking, he looked at Ji Fa and asked, "What do you want from me?" Ji Fa opened his mouth and suddenly felt that Chen Lian's eyes were too unfamiliar and oppressive. Chen Lian took a sip of wine and said, "It's a matter in Tokyo. You, Wang and Xiaoxian should decide this matter. The works from previous tours and the clothes I designed will be officially launched in October, and an art fashion exhibition will be held in Tokyo." Ji Fa nodded and suddenly asked worriedly, "Should I take you to see a psychiatrist? I feel something is wrong with your state." "No, I feel very good now. I have never felt better." Chen Lian put out the cigarette butt, looked at Li Fuchen with a complicated expression and said, "If you hesitate, you can withdraw now." Li Fuchen suddenly became angry. He looked at Chen Lian and said, "You want to leave me now? Are you deliberately using it to interfere with Samsung's R/U0026D progress?" "Of course not, it's just that I can see that you are very troubled, or that you have no confidence." Chen Lian looked at her and said, "How can a person without confidence be determined to do things well?" Li Fuchen looked at Chen Lian in surprise and couldn't help but said, "Shouldn't it be you who gave me confidence? You asked me to leave Samsung and follow you, shouldn't you give me a guarantee? What are you doing during this time? You play missing. Have you ever thought about me? Didn't I just give it to you? The new audio format has been made. It's because you are too afraid of Samsung and don't believe in yourself." Chen Lian pushed the wine in front of Li Fuchen and said, "You need it more than me. Have a drink and have a good sleep. Then come talk to me again." Chen Lian looked at Ji Fa again and said, "Don't worry about me. Go back and tell Bo Qing that I'm fine. Thank her." Ji Fa nodded and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Why do artists have mental problems? Chen Lian left, and Li Fuchen sat there staring at the red wine in front of him in a daze. Ji Fa glanced at her and said tentatively, "Why don't you go back to the room and I'll have a drink with you?" Li Fuchen suddenly turned to look at Ji Fa and asked, "What kind of person is he? I thought I saw him clearly, but now I realize that I don't understand him at all." Ji Fa hesitated and said, "Do you understand schizophrenia?" I suspect he is schizophrenic. Li Fujian looked at Ji Fa in shock and asked, what happened? Why has she been missing for a month? Ji Fa sighed, put his arm around Li Fujian's shoulders and said, the reasons are very complicated. Let's talk about it in another place. Good. How about you take the wine and go to my room? Li Fujian took the wine and Ji Fa and left. When Chen Lian returned to his room, Mr. Zhou was lying on the bed reading a book, chewing gum and blowing a big bubble. Buh. The bubble burst. Mr. Zhou licked the chewing gum into his mouth with his tongue. When he saw Chen Lian coming back, he jumped up and stood at the end of the bed, opened his hands and said to Chen Lian, you are back. Chen Lian stepped forward and picked up Mr. Zhou, looked up at her and asked, what are you looking at? The science of joy is a bit incomprehensible. Mr. Zhou wrinkled his small nose and complained, the books written by these philosophers are too difficult to understand. How can you read them? Philosophy is the most complex subject in human beings. It is useless to read too much, and the Chinese translation of this book is not good. Chen Lian sat down with Mr. Zhou in his arms, scraped her nose and said, you can start with some a simple novel begins. Then you can recommend some books to me. Mr. Zhou had just finished speaking while holding Chen Lian in his arms, when he remembered something and jumped out of him and said, I saw a beautiful scarf today, come and try it on. Mr. Zhou's thinking was too wild. Chen Lian looked at the blue scarf she handed over and wrapped it around his neck, and asked, does it look good? It looks good. It suits your temperament very well. It's calm and profound. Mr. Zhou was very satisfied with his vision. He helped Chen Lian tie the scarf and said with a smile, you are not allowed to change it this winter. It will get dirty if you keep wearing it. I bought 3 pairs, enough for you to change, and I have some myself. Mr. Zhou pulled Chen Lian to try on all 3 scarves, put on his own, and said to Chen Lian enthusiastically, let's take pictures. Good. Mr. Zhou stood in front of Chen Lian, tied his hanging scarf around his neck, then looked up at him and said, this way I won't lose you. Then will you look for me like Mata? Chen Lian said with a smile the lines of Mr. Zhou in the Suzhou River. No way, Mr. Zhou snorted and said, I won't lose you unless you run away by yourself. If you run away by yourself, I will never look for you. Chen Lian smiled and pressed the shutter, taking a picture of Mr. Zhou with his face upturned and having a tantrum. No, I'm not ready yet, start over. No, it doesn't look good if you do it deliberately. No, take another shot. I want you to hold me and take the shot. If you don't even look for me, I don't want it. Then why don't I look for you? The dim room flickered on and off under the flash of the camera, and the 2 people's laughter was frozen in one moment, with only happiness and each other in their eyes. The weather in September is still hot, but the high humidity in the morning makes it a bit cool. Chen Lian stood by the window and looked at the scenery outside. He liked the early morning on the Bund very much. I'm leaving today. I've been lazy for a month. There are many things waiting for me to do. Chen Lian stuffed the clothes into his bag, turned to look at Mr. Zhou who was still awake, walked over and kissed her forehead, pinched her face and said, bye. Mr. Zhou opened his arms and hugged Chen Lian and was silent for a long time before saying, don't leave me again. Chen Lian rubbed Duke Zhou's head and left with his travel bag. Mr. Zhou sat on the edge of the bed and was stunned for a while, then he ran to the window and looked down. He saw Chen Lian who had gone downstairs, handed his bag to his assistant, then got in the car and left. Mr. Zhou was relieved. It would be nice if someone followed him, at least he wouldn't lose contact. In the car, Chen Lian looked at the information Li Shui had prepared in advance, which contained detailed information about music players from Leixin. Chen Lian looked through various data, took out a notebook, thought for a while, and drew a design draft of a concept machine on it with a pencil. Li Shui sat nearby and looked at Chen Lian carefully, feeling that Chen Lian, who had not seen him for a month, felt a little distant from strangers. The car was very quiet, so quiet that Li Shui was a little nervous and scared. As an assistant, she had been working beside Chen Lian for less than a month. As soon as she got used to the rhythm, Chen Lian disappeared for a month, and his temperament changed drastically. This made Li Shui start to worry about his future. Will he be fired by Chen Lian one day because he opened the door with his left hand? Chen Lian turned the pencil in his hand and rolled down the car window a little, and the cold wind blew in instantly. The notebook in Chen Lian's hand was blown up page by the wind, making a rustling sound of turning pages, as if calling Chen Lian to draw faster. The finger holding the pencil clicked on the book, and when he pressed the corner page, he suddenly became quiet. Chen Lian held the pencil against the book and continued to draw the unfinished design. By the time he finished painting, the car had already arrived at the airport. Li Fuchen and Ji Fa were both in the VIP waiting room of the airport at this time, but they were sitting a little far apart. Li Fuchen seemed to be deliberately avoiding Ji Fa. Ji Fa was about to fly back to the capital. After seeing Chen Lian in the VIP waiting room, she chatted with him for a few words and told him to contact him as soon as possible if anything happened. He also gave Chen Lian a business card of a psychiatrist and asked him to call him if he had nothing to do. Chat with the doctor. Ji Fa's flight was earlier and she had already left by plane. Chen Lian looked at Li Fuchen, who had been sitting far away, and waved to her. Li Fuchen hesitated for a moment before standing up and walking to sit next to Chen Lian. Chen Lian looked at Li Fuchen's profile and said after a while, "You are different from what I imagined." Li Fuchen frowned slightly and followed his words and asked, "What do you imagine me to be like?" "Persistence, tenacity, calmness, courage, and beauty." Chen Lian laughed as he spoke, looked into Li Fuchen's eyes and continued, "Now all that's left is beauty. Complimenting a woman with her beauty is not the highest compliment, and Li Fuchen does not need such praise, especially when it comes from Chen Lian. This is not a compliment but a sarcasm. You really should see a doctor." Chen Lian said nonchalantly, "Go to the research room with me this afternoon and show you the finished product. After reading it, make your choice. Don't hesitate anymore." As soon as he finished speaking, a staff member came over to remind him that he could board the plane in advance. Chen Lian stood up and left. Li Fuchen looked at Chen Lian's leaving figure and felt a cold feeling in his heart. When he and Chen Lian were together before, they would argue and confront each other, but they had never been so cold. When Li Shui passed by Li Fuchen, she glanced at her and saw the same doubt as her own in her eyes. On the plane, Chen Lian did not rest as usual, but looked at Leixin's revenue reports and market analysis in recent months. The VCD market has expanded, and sales are growing steadily, but it has passed the stage of explosive growth. In the past 2 months, there has even been a trend of flatness and decline. More and more manufacturers are starting to make VCDs, and they are starting to engage in price wars. Dealers are also constantly making noises, hoping to reduce the cost of purchasing goods, and even starting to ask for delivery first and payment later. Chen Lian knew that VCD would not last long. The market was becoming saturated, too many people were losing out, the huge profits had disappeared, and all that was left was to engage in price wars to achieve small profits but quick turnover. This kind of competition will eliminate a large number of manufacturers. Leixin will survive, but it will not be as prosperous as before. The competition in the domestic market is too fierce. Every day there are reckless heroes, and there are also celebrities who end tragically. Li Fuchen, who was sitting next to Chen Lian, said at this time, "Samsung's VCD production capacity has exceeded that of Leixin, and now it has begun dumping and entering into a price war. Leixin's current situation is not ideal." Chen Lian had no reaction after hearing this. He just closed the file and asked the stewardess for a glass of orange juice. Li Fuchen frowned and said angrily, "I'm talking to you. This is not what I want to hear." Chen Lian took a sip of orange juice and said, "It tastes good. Do you want a drink?" Li Fuchen knew what Chen Lian meant, so he directly picked up the cup in his hand and took a sip before saying, "Are you satisfied now?" Chen Lian saw that he had lost more than half of his juice and couldn't help but sigh. There are many ways to express his attitude. "Why should you drink my juice? You should have been like this a long time ago." Chen Lian put the document in Li Fujian's hand and said, "Since you have decided to do it at the beginning, don't look forward and backward. You have already panicked before Samsung has taken action, otherwise you would not have flown to when you come to Shanghai. You should think about how to break the situation." Li Fujian was silenced by Chen Lian. He was indeed panicked, but that was also because Chen Lian was missing. "Don't say it's because of me. I'm not your backbone. We are partners, not superiors and subordinates. After all, you are still afraid of people stronger than you." Chen Lian directly said what Li Fujian was saying, and even took off her a fig leaf. Li Fujian bit her lip and looked at Chen Lian's profile. For a moment, she wanted to kill Chen Lian's shame. Chen Lian did not give Li Fujian time to be sad. He knocked on the documents in her hand and continued, "VCD is not important. I just like its cash flow and high profits. Now it is time to slowly withdraw from this field. You want to pool your funds to make a music player. Don't keep asking repetitive questions. At this time, you should be thinking about how to use so much funds. This will make me doubt your ability. Today's update: I got off work too late in the evening, and I'm almost exhausted. I'll make up for it when I wake up tomorrow. There will be a small composition update in the group on Sunday. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 391. Chapter 377-376. Don't like vase beauties. Chen Lian doesn't like people who are incompetent, and he doesn't like people who are hesitant about doing things. If you are willing to make a beautiful vase, then Chen Lian will take good care of it, but if you are not willing to make a vase, you must show your own value. The flight time from Shanghai to Yangcheng was short, but it was enough for Li Fujian to read Leixin's analysis report, which was more detailed than the intelligence collected by Samsung. After getting off the plane, Li Fujian has been thinking about the future of Leixin. It is impossible to give up VCD at this stage, but it is inappropriate to continue to invest a lot of money. Judging from the current situation, it is most appropriate to cut it in half directly after the year. But before that, the music player must be played. Li Fujian is not an incompetent person, but he has been at Samsung for too long and has become afraid of this increasingly large consortium. A person who only thinks about inheritance naturally does not have the wildness of an entrepreneur. But there is a saying that goes well: nothing can be broken without establishing. Chen Lian glanced at Li Fujian lightly, hoping that this time she could stand up again and become a truly ambitious woman. Otherwise, just make it a mascot in the future. Anyway, it looks quite pleasing to the eye, and it also has a status bonus. In Leixin's research room, after Chen Lian handed them the design drawings he drew on the road, he immediately went to rush to produce them. It doesn't take much time to roll out a shell by hand, but Chen Lian can still afford to wait. Li Fujian was in front of the computer watching a researcher demonstrate how to compress and convert a new audio format, but after reading it, he couldn't help but frown. Is this step too complicated? The young programmer touched his head and said, "It's quite simple." Chen Lian couldn't help but say, "It's simple for you, but it's a bit complicated for ordinary people. It should be simple, preferably foolproof, and it should be able to convert the MP3 format into our own format. If an audio format wants to be promoted, the threshold must be low enough." Li Fujian also nodded and said, "Yes, once there is a threshold, it means that the basis for promotion is lost." "I understand, I will redesign it," the programmer nodded. Chen Lian hummed, patted his shoulder and said, "Thank you for your hard work. If you want to create an audio format, you only need a few programmers." This time, we also asked the Acoustic Research Laboratory of NTU to work together. The overall result is indeed very good. Although there is no way to achieve completely lossless compression, it is much better than the existing MP3 format. After listening to the compressed audio, I glanced at the suffix of the file, which was LNA, and asked curiously, who came up with this name? The programmer smiled and said, it was named together with the laboratory at Nanda. L stands for Leixin, N stands for Nanda, and A stands for audio. Chen Lian nodded and said, I don't know, I thought it was developed by Lining. Probably not. Haha, just kidding. Chen Lian was quite satisfied with the results of this research, and Li Fuchen also became very confident. When I came out of the laboratory, I couldn't help but say, I didn't expect it would really be done, and it would be so fast. Chen Lian responded, China does not lack talents, but we are too far behind and there are too many places that need talents. This is not a high-tech product. No one cared about it in the past. They all wanted to specialize in high-tech products. Naturally, no one concentrated on audio. If you have so much money to invest in chips, wouldn't it be better to develop some high-tech products? This is a common perception in the country. In Jiao Linmu's office, Chen Lian and Li Fuchen appeared together and discussed the future development plan of the factory all afternoon. The conversation was not pleasant. Jiao Linmu and Chen Lian had differences, and they were big differences. This is the first time this kind of thing has happened to the two of them, but Chen Lian is unwilling to watch Leixin being slowly dragged into the quagmire by VCD. Now the entire industry is preparing for a price war. If it continues, all the funds of the factory will be lost. And then drag yourself to death. Jiao Linmu smoked a cigarette and looked at Chen Lian, rubbing his eyebrows and saying, there are so many dealers and employees, and the impact of cutting them all off will be too great. Chen Lian insisted, it is wise to withdraw in time, and there are still a few months left, so it is completely late to make adjustments in time. Jiao Linmu looked at Chen Lian and then at Li Fuchen, who had been silent, and finally sighed and said, listen to you young people. From now on, I will be a factory director in charge of production. Second uncle, don't say such things, it will make me bully you. We agreed at the beginning that the music player must be made. Jiao Linmu couldn't help but kick Chen Lian and said, then you didn't say you would go all in so quickly. Do you know the consequences of such a rapid transformation? What problems will happen if the capital chain cannot keep up? Chen Lian sighed and said, I have money. I made a lot of money during the financial crisis. There will be no problem with the capital chain. Jiao Linmu was silent for a while and said, forget it, I'll just listen to you. It's really hard to make VCD. BBK has been playing too hard in the past 2 years. Chen Lian breathed a sigh of relief and said, thank you, second uncle. You will know that my decision was right in the future. Jiao Linmu couldn't help but light up another cigarette and said, I know, I have always believed in your vision. Without your advice, Leixin would not be able to achieve such great success. Okay, don't act like you're in love, go home and eat, I'm hungry. Your aunt and your sister went out to play. Let's go to the cafeteria to eat. Forget it, I'll go out to eat. With Jiao Linmu's support, the next steps will be much easier. There are still a few months for Chen Lian and Li Fuchen to arrange the next steps. After returning to the hotel in the evening, Chen Lian sat on the sofa and watched TV. What was on the TV was the final of the Miss Universe contest. Originally, Chen Lian should have appeared at the finals, but Chen Lian was too lazy to go. Whether or not he watched the game was not that important. However, the contestants who made it to the finals are all very good, both in terms of figure and temperament. They are all first class, And they all have pure Oriental beauty, not Western aesthetic Oriental beauties. What surprised Chen Lian the most was that this little girl Zhang Beizi could appear in the finals, but she had no chance of ranking. Her appearance was indeed good, but she was inferior in other aspects. Chen Lian looked through the contestant information sent by Cheng Shifen and was selecting the right person to be his model to go to Paris for a catwalk show. It is not difficult to choose from the 56 models. The contestants who can be sent to Chen Lian are carefully selected. After a while, Li Fuchen came out of the bathroom after taking a shower, walked behind Chen Lian, looked at the photos, and asked curiously, "Are you planning to increase your investment in the cultural industry?" Chen Lian closed the folder and said, "The idea I had before is now ready to be handed over to Ji Fa. It's just that I promised others before, and now I have to continue to fulfill my promise. I promised Bernard to go to Paris Fashion Week, so naturally I couldn't break my promise. Bernard will be the richest man in the world in the future, so he still needs to be given the face he deserves. And this time, Chen Lian plans to use the influence of Paris Fashion Week to make a music player appearance. People who participate in Paris Fashion Week are all fashion conscious and have a great influence on young people around the world. Chen Lian will not let go of such an opportunity." After hearing what Chen Lian said, Li Fuchen also got into work mode. He ignored his undried hair and said, "New products need a name, and new companies also need a name." Chen Lian thought for a while and said, "Let's use Leixin as the company name, and call the product Magic Flute, which is easy for foreigners to understand." Chen Lian originally wanted to take 2 words from the Book of Songs, but considering that the main market now is foreigners, considering their understanding ability, it is better to use a name that they can understand. Don't be arrogant when making money. It's useless for Chen Lian to give him a name that Chinese people can understand. There is currently no market for music players in China, and few people can afford a new gadget that costs hundreds of yuan each. After saying this, Chen Lian and Li Fuchen discussed for a while and then rested. However, when the two of them were lying on the bed, Li Fuchen was not used to it. It was Chen Lian who took the initiative in the past. "Why is there no movement today?" The two of them were like Cold War lovers sleeping together at night, both waiting for the other to take the initiative. In the darkness, Li Fuchen glanced sideways at Chen Lian and found that his breathing had almost stabilized, so he couldn't help but turn over on purpose. But after waiting for a few seconds, there was still no movement. Li Fuchen finally lost his composure and turned his back to him and said, "Why don't you get 2 rooms? Li Shueding, you ask her. Dot. You dog man, you might as well take the initiative than that woman Ji Fa." Li Fuchen snorted and turned over, directly riding on Chen Lian, looking down at his eyes. Immediately afterwards, Chen Lian saw the latest technology product developed by Samsung. It was very childlike and fun, but you had to put in coins every time you played. Li Fuchen blushed and stretched his hand behind his back and pointed the coin at the coin slot. The Fuchen rocking car started to move, rocking back and forth. Chen Lian didn't know what his father's name was, but he learned how to call him Dad in Korean. After listening to it all night, it was difficult for him to learn it. This is probably the best way to learn a foreign language. In the next 2 days, Chen Lian and Li Fuchen continued to discuss the plans for the magic flute player. After the two decided on the plan, Chen Lian went to Shenzhen, and Li Fuchen flew directly to the United States to register a new company. Of course, if it is not registered in the United States, the company's structure will be more complicated to avoid problems in the future. In a hotel in Shenzhen, Chen Lian reserved the entire banquet hall on the hotel floor and gathered together all the Miss Universe contestants he had previously selected for interviews. There is a difference between a catwalk and a beauty pageant, and there are so many sets of clothes, so you have to find the most suitable model to wear them. Chen Lian specially asked an old friend to help this time. Song Huigui, the owner of Maxim Restaurant, took a Chinese model team to Paris in the 1980s. Known as China's fashion godmother, she has rich experience in fashion catwalks. The most important thing is that Song Huigui is still a painter and can fully understand Chen Lian's ideas. In the empty banquet hall, a runway had just been laid. After checking it, Chen Lian said to Cheng Shifen, "Sister Shifen, go and keep an eye on the back, let them get ready, and walk through their swimsuits first." "Okay, I'll make arrangements now." Cheng Shifen agreed and went backstage. Chen Lian originally wanted to smoke, but when he saw the designed clothes hanging in the exhibition hall, he gave up. It would be troublesome if the clothes smelled of cigarette smoke. Most of the clothes here are very troublesome to clean. Chen Lian walked up to Song Huigui, who was looking at clothes, and asked, "What do you think?" Very thoughtful Song Huigui looked at the skirt in front of her and asked, "Is this a horse-faced skirt? You removed those traditional patterns and the black and gold double-sided embroidery. It's really beautiful, traditional but not lost. Fashion." Chen Lian said with a smile, "For these traditional costumes, what I do is basically subtraction. Our ancestors had too many things, and people nowadays are too impetuous and like simple things." Song Huigui said with emotion, "You are right, the fashion trend has always been to subtract. Because addition is too difficult." Chen Lian looked at these clothes and said, "The essence of fashion is still commercial behavior, and subtraction means greater popularity." Song Huigui glanced at Chen Lian in surprise and said, "You have changed a lot. I remember when I first met you, your mind was full of artists' tricks and you were busy criticizing." "Everyone has to grow up," Chen Lian said with a smile. "Let's go prepare and look at the models. I hope these contestants can meet the requirements, otherwise it will be difficult for me to find so many models." Song Huigui nodded and said, "If it's not suitable, some models I know can recommend it to you, but their current temperament may not meet your requirements. Too much Western influence." "Yes, what we have been developing in the past has been towards European and American fashion and stage sense, but none of it has the mysterious beauty of Oriental classics that you want." Chen Lian smiled and said, "Then I hope we can choose a suitable model." Soon the traditional folk music Ambush from Flying Daggers began to play in the banquet hall. The moment the music started playing, the girls who had been prepared backstage raised their heads and walked out. On the side of the long tea stage, Chen Lian, Song Huigui and several well-known domestic models were sitting on chairs and looking at the models' catwalks. Chen Lian looked at the energetic models and wrote comments in his notebook. The expression management is not in line with Chen Lian's requirements. Each one is influenced by beauty pageants. Their smiles are too beautiful, and their overall temperament is more like a fashion beauty rather than traditional classical beauty. But it may also have something to do with the makeup. What Chen Lian mainly looks at now is the rhythm of their bodies and their body proportions. Tall, fair-skinned, and beautiful models showed off their beauty wantonly on the catwalk, all hoping to be selected by Chen Lian. Even if you are not selected as Chen Lian's model in the end, it would be nice to be remembered by Chen Lian and something would happen. Isn't this artist's reputation notoriously romantic? It's a pity that in Chen Lian's eyes, they can only be regarded as high-end vases. A few glances are enough. He has no interest in keeping them for private collection. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 392. Chapter 378-377. Zhang Beizi's choice of two. The music in the banquet hall stopped and started again, which had been repeated 10 times. More than 100 models have all walked through it more than 5 times. Among them are the champions of various Miss Universe mainland competitions and the champions of the finals, but no one has any complaints. Even if they win the global championship, they are only qualified to say a few words to Chen Lian. As for complaining, that is a self-destructive approach. Wearing high heels and walking on the catwalk is very hard, but if you can become Chen Lian's model, you may enter the fashion industry and have the opportunity to become a supermodel. No matter how bad things are, you can still get generous rewards from Chen Lian, and no one will have trouble with their future. After 2 more rounds of catwalks, 1/3 of the more than 100 candidates have been eliminated. There were only more than 80 people left waiting for the next round of screening. In the rest area backstage, all the models were sitting on chairs to rest. Many models are talking about Chen Lian, models from all over the country, as well as models from Hong Kong and Macau, but no one knows Chen Lian. They used to read about Chen Lian in newspapers, but now they are a little excited to see him in person. He's really handsome. He looks much better than in the newspaper. Being handsome is secondary, having talent and money is even more important. It would be great if you could choose me. I think so too. I haven't been abroad yet, and Shenzhen is already the furthest place from home. Yes, the deep cities are so beautiful. I don't know what Paris is like. In the corner of the rest area, Zhang Beizi rubbed his ankles. Listening to what the models said, he couldn't help curling his lips, but sighed in his heart. I grew up abroad, but now I am not competing with them for an opportunity. Zhang Beizi raised his head and saw Cheng Shifen drinking water in the background. He immediately stood up and walked over with his own glass of water and said flatteringly, "Sister Shifen, this is the sugar water I brought. It is very nourishing. Please replenish it after all your hard work." Cheng Shifen took it with a smile, opened it, took a look and said, "Bird's nest? It's not bad. As long as Sister Shifen likes it." Zhang Beizi smiled sweetly, and then asked in a low voice, "Sister Shifen, what are the selection criteria for Teacher Chen? Do I have any hope?" Cheng Shifen couldn't help but knock Zhang Beizi on the head and said, "I know this sugar water is not that delicious. No, I'm just curious to ask." Tang Shui thanks Sister Shifen for taking care of me. Cheng Shifen looked at Zhang Beizi, who was a little clever, and said, "I don't know Lian's selection criteria, but you must seize this opportunity. The company will establish a luxury brand in the future. If you are selected, you will have the opportunity to become a spokesperson of." "Really?" Zhang Beizi immediately asked excitedly. Cheng Shifen nodded and said, "Do you know who invited Lian to participate in Paris Fashion Week?" Zhang Beizi shook his head and asked curiously, "Who is it?" "The boss of LV. There are other big shots behind the scenes that you don't know. Don't miss this opportunity if you seize it," Cheng Shifen reminded her again, and then left with Zhang Beizi's bird's nest. Zhang Beizi stood there, clenched his fists, and glanced in Chen Lian's direction. He wanted to go over and say hello, but he was worried that it would be counterproductive. "Beizi." Suddenly someone behind Zhang Beizi called her name. She turned her head and saw that it was a player from Xiangjiang who was calling her. Zhang Beizi ran over and realized that the cell phone in his bag was ringing. After saying thank you, Zhang Beizi took his mobile phone and went to the corner to answer the call. The phone call was from the talent scout who introduced her to a commercial in Xiangjiang. "Hey, brother Nan, what do you want from me?" Zhang Beizi asked, holding the phone. "Good news, Star Master saw your advertisement and Miss Universe competition video, and wants to choose you as the heroine of his movie." "Really?" Zhang Beizi asked in surprise. "Of course it's true. I've been called. Come back quickly. Master Singh wants to see you." Zhang Beizi jumped up and screamed excitedly, but soon realized that he still had to wait for Chen Lian to be selected. "Brother Nan, did Master Singh say when you want to see me? I'm still competing here. It's just in the afternoon. If it's too late, you might not have a chance." "Why are you still competing? You made your debut after starring in Xing Yi's movie. You'll be a big star in the future." Zhang Beizi was instantly confused. There were opportunities on both sides, one was Paris Fashion Week and the other was Star-Lord's movie. He didn't want to give up either one. So he took the phone and said, "Brother Nan, can you change the time? It will be very miserable if I quit temporarily. You know, Chen Lian is crazy. Well, okay, you wait until I ask. Thank you, brother Nan. I'll treat you to a big dinner when I get back. After Zhang Beizi hung up the phone gratefully, he turned around and saw Chen Lian standing behind him, holding a beautiful set of ancient costumes in his hand. In Zhang Beizi's eyes, these are all ancient costumes, but the styles are different, and he doesn't know which ethnic group they are from. But now she had no time to think about the issue of ancient costumes or national costumes, she just took a step back in fear. Why is he so unlucky? Every time he speaks ill of Chen Lian, he gets caught. It's over, there's no need to choose now. Let's go back to Xiangjiang in the afternoon. I hope Xingyi can use himself as the heroine. Chen Lian looked at Zhang Beizi expressionlessly and said, this is the second time. After saying that, Chen Lian turned around and left. Cheng Shifen originally came to help plead for mercy, so Chen Lian thought of letting Zhang Beizi try. Now there is no need. Chen Lian gave the clothes to a mainland girl he had originally liked and asked her to change into them and walk around again. Zhang Beizi looked at the scene and instantly wanted to strangle himself to death. The opportunity was delivered to him and then slipped away. Teacher Chen, Zhang Beizi chased after him and wanted to apologize, but Chen Lian just glanced at her and let Li Shui, who had been following him, block her. Cheng Shifen, who was not far away, saw the scene and immediately came over and asked, Lian, what happened? You go ask her. After Chen Lian finished speaking, he continued his work. Cheng Shifen looked at Chen Lian's back and couldn't help but frown. She turned around and walked up to Zhang Beizi and asked, what did you do? Do you know that I just begged for you? You couldn't even seize the opportunity given to you. Zhang Beizi looked at Cheng Shifen without tears and said, Sister Shifen, I'm sorry, I'm so unlucky. Unlucky, Cheng Shifen said with a cold face, are you blaming someone else? I'm sorry Sister Shifen. Zhang Beizi immediately admitted his mistake and pulled Cheng Shifen to tell her what had just happened. After listening, Cheng Shifen was also a little speechless. For a moment, she didn't know whether to blame Zhang Beizi for speaking so freely or for her bad luck. Zhang Beizi pulled Cheng Shifen and said, Sister Shifen, I just want to be serious. I want to win the opportunity there. I really didn't mean to scold him. Sister Shifen, please help me. Let me think about it. Cheng Shifen sighed and said, you prepare for the next round first, and I'll go check out his tone. Thank you, Sister Shifen. Zhang Beizi immediately thanked her. Cheng Shifen was really optimistic about Zhang Beizi. The little girl was smart and good-looking, so she still wanted to help her. Chen Lian was busy arranging the details of the clothes of a model who was changing clothes at this time. Cheng Shifen came over and called out, but he just replied lightly and said that he would wait for the meeting before going back. After finishing arranging the clothes, Chen Lian walked around the model and took a look. He thought it looked suitable, so he wrote down her name and asked her to change clothes. Sister Shifen, do you want to plead for her? Chen Lian put away his notebook, looked at Cheng Shifen and said, this is the second time. Cheng Shifen sighed and explained the matter, she didn't mean it. I am very optimistic about her. Give her another chance. A movie by Stephen Chow. Chen Lian remembered that he was the king of comedy, and the gear of fate had turned to this moment. However, Chen Lian wanted to compete with this gear. He looked at Cheng Shifen and said, I can give her a chance to choose one of the two, stay or go back to find Zhou Xingqi. When Cheng Shifen heard Chen Lian relent, she smiled and said, she is a smart person and will know what it means. Chen Lian said calmly, I hope she is really smart. Cheng Shifen smiled and went to tell Zhang Beizi the news. After hearing this, the little girl was confused. How should she choose between the two? Looking at the entangled Zhang Beizi, Cheng Shifen couldn't help but said, you don't think it's really a choice between two, do you? Huh? What do you mean? Zhang Beizi was stunned for a moment. Cheng Shifen held back her temper and said, Lian is willing to give you a chance. If you give up, you will slap him in the face. Do you think you still have a chance? Where is your cleverness? Zhang Beizi suddenly woke up and couldn't help but swallowed. He looked at Cheng Shifen gratefully and said, I'm sorry, Sister Shifen, I didn't understand it at the moment. Grow your brains, Cheng Shifen cursed and left. She thought she was a smart person, but she didn't expect that she was also brainless. Zhang Beizi really wanted to cry now, and Cheng Shifen, the only one willing to help him, was also angry with him. Why am I so stupid? Why didn't I turn around? After all, the star girl is so attractive that even an actor would want to win over her. This small episode did not affect the subsequent selection. There was a short break of 40 minutes at noon and continued again in the afternoon. It was not until the evening that the selection came to an end. Chen Lian looked at the list that had been recorded and felt relieved. Looking at Song Huigui, he said, would you like to choose a few more substitutes? I'm worried that there will be problems with the training these days and I won't be able to find anyone temporarily. Song Huigui nodded and said, it's really necessary to be just in case. If you have an alternative, choose something more popular. Chen Lian nodded, then added a few more names to his candidate list, and then announced the list. However, he didn't say who was the official one and who was the substitute. After the list was announced, the girls who were selected couldn't help but cheer. Those who were not selected were extremely disappointed. They couldn't hold on even after maintaining their body for a day, and they were instantly exhausted. Bend down. Any selection and competition is cruel. Chen Lian gave each unsuccessful model a red envelope as a reward for their hard work, and then left. The girls on the catwalk sat there without any image, laughing and crying. Beauty and sexiness had nothing to do with them at this time, only happiness and loss lingered around them. In the corner of the tea stage, Zhang Beizi also breathed a sigh of relief. He was selected and became one of the 60 people. But why 60? There are obviously only 56 sets of clothes. Will anyone be eliminated? Zhang Beizi realized something in an instant, and the original happiness in his heart disappeared instantly. Can't be eliminated. I have given up on the movie audition, and I must not be eliminated again, otherwise I will really be left empty-handed. Zhang Beizi immediately grabbed his things, endured the pain, took off his high heels and chased out. Chen Lian and Cheng Shifen lived in this hotel, and these models also stayed in this hotel. When Zhang Beizi chased them out of the banquet hall, he only saw Chen Lian and the others entering the elevator and going upstairs. Zhang Beizi immediately ran over and looked at the rising elevator. After remembering the landing floor, he took his things and returned to his room. Seize the opportunity. There must be no more luck, Cheng Shifen will not help herself anymore. There is another chapter to be updated, which will be updated a little later. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 393. Chapter 379-378. A good show. In the air-conditioned room, Li Shui, who was dressed in black professional attire, smoothed her hair, looked at Chen Lian who was resting with his eyes closed, and reported on the work in a leisurely tone. Teacher Chen, the list of models has been compiled, and everyone's documents have been sent to the expedited lane to apply for visas. The masters who make clothing are also rushing to change the size. They will go to Paris with them. The hotel and training venue in Paris have also been communicated. After landing, you can check in directly and start training. The French Fashion Association sent an invitation to the cocktail party before the start of the Fashion Week, which will be on the evening of September 25th. Li Shui's ability is indeed much stronger than Lu Tao, and so many things are arranged in an orderly manner. While Chen Lian was listening to Li Shui's report and thinking about how to take advantage of this opportunity, there was a sudden knock on the door. Li Shui immediately stopped reporting, closed the folder, looked at Chen Lian and said, "Teacher Chen, are you going to open the door?" Chen Lian opened his eyes and looked at Li Shui and said, "If they are those models, get rid of them." Okay, Li Shui immediately turned around and opened the door. When he opened the door, it was exactly what Chen Lian said. After sending him away, Li Shui went back to report. The little girl outside the door stamped her foot bitterly, resenting Li Shui for meddling in her own business. Zhang Beizi, who was pretending to be passing by, saw someone rushing ahead and was still upset, but when he saw that it was Li Shui who opened the door and drove the person away, he immediately felt glad that he was a step too late. The rejected girl turned her head to look at Zhang Beizi, snorted and left. Zhang Beizi stretched his head towards her back and made a face, then walked away on catwalk. However, she did not leave this floor. Instead, she stood at the corner of the corridor and stared at Chen Lian's room. She wanted to wait until Li Shui left before knocking on the door. Even if Chen Lian drives him away, he can still meet and have a few words. What if Chen Lian is just pretending in front of others? His true colors may be revealed when no one is around. Zhang Beizi smoothed his hair. He was still very confident in his appearance. He couldn't believe that Chen Lian was not tempted. Zhang Beizi stood in the corner and waited for half an hour when he saw 5 or 6 model-dressed Huazhizayazan knocking on the door, but then they all came away defeated. "A bunch of little bitches," Zhang Beizi cursed in a low voice, leaned against the wall and continued to wait. After waiting for almost another 20 minutes, Zhang Beizi saw Li Shui coming out. Zhang Beizi secretly looked at Li Shui several times to confirm that there was nothing wrong with her condition, and he felt more confident. Zhang Beizi adjusted her skirt and stockings, took out her makeup box and took a look at her makeup, and then walked towards Chen Lian's room. Boom, boom, boom. Chen Lian, who had just taken off his clothes and prepared to go to bed, sat up irritably. Didn't he have his own bed in the middle of the night? You have to crawl into someone else's bed. A few in one night? Zhang Beizi knocked for a long time but didn't hear any movement, so he leaned on the door and listened to the movement inside. Click. The door was opened, and Zhang Beizi screamed and rushed in without standing still. Zhang Beizi grabbed Chen Lian's pajamas and wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl in. How could he fail to such an extent? Zhang Beizi cautiously raised his head and looked at Chen Lian's cold face, swallowed subconsciously, and then forced out a flattering smile. List. Before Zhang Beizi finished speaking, Chen Lian pulled him in. When the door was closed, a "Do Not Disturb" sign was hung up. Chen Lian in the room looked at Zhang Beizi with a sullen expression. She was so frightened that she didn't dare to speak, and she also forgot what she was here for. After all, she was just an 18-year-old girl. She had never seen such a scene before. Chen Lian glanced at her, turned around, poured a glass of wine, and drank by himself before saying, "Why are you standing there? You didn't come here just to be in a daze in the middle of the night." Zhang Beizi bit his lip, took a deep breath, walked towards Chen Lian, and whispered, "Teacher Chen, I'm here to apologize to you. Let's get to the point." "How are you going to apologize?" Chen Lian glanced at her, as if he were looking at a clown in a circus. Zhang Beizi felt as if Chen Lian's eyes were see-through, seeing all of him. The air conditioner in the room was blowing air conditioning, but Zhang Beizi felt that Chen Lian's gaze was even colder, as if it could freeze her. Zhang Beizi subconsciously took a step back and hit the foot of the bed, almost losing his footing. Chen Lian snorted coldly, waved his hand boredly and said, "Go away." He has no consciousness at all and dares to knock on his door, which is worse than a vase. Zhang Beizi was stabbed hard by Chen Lian's attitude and that mocking look, and all his self-confidence since he was a child was destroyed at this moment. "Am I not even able to climb into a man's bed?" Zhang Beizi bit his lip and stood up straight, mustering up all his courage to look at Chen Lian, and unbuttoned his shirt with trembling hands. Chen Lian was sitting on the sofa, shaking his wine glass and looking at her playfully, as if he was watching a funny show. Chen Lian's eyes made Zhang Beizi suddenly understand one thing: unspoken rules are never easy. As long as you have any self-respect and dignity, it will be torn to pieces at this moment. Zhang Beizi closed his eyes and continued to unbutton his buttons, but he couldn't help but shed a tear from the corner of his eyes. Chen Lian tilted his head and looked at the teardrop in the corner of Zhang Beizi's eye. He couldn't help but applaud and said, "Yes, it is very dramatic. The contradictions and struggles, and the depravity of human nature are all in that tear." Zhang Beizi's movements froze, and he slowly opened his eyes and looked at Chen Lian. The tears in his eyes instantly flowed out. He could no longer control his emotions and squatted on the ground holding his legs and crying. This was completely different from what she thought. She originally thought it would be nothing more than a sleep. But after I came in, I realized that what I took off was not my clothes, but everything I owned, including dignity, self-confidence, illusions, and arrogance. Everything was severely shattered by reality. It's like a hanging lamb, letting others look at it, check it, comment on it, and then spend a little money to put it on a chain and take it away. Chen Lian listened to Zhang Beizi's cries and drank wine quietly without any change in his expression. He just sat there and watched her break down and regret a little bit. A girl's tears are sometimes very valuable, sometimes they are worthless. A few minutes later, Chen Lian finished the wine in his glass, stood up and said to Zhang Beizi, "Get out now." Zhang Beizi stopped sobbing for a moment, raised his head and looked at Chen Lian biting his lip, then stood up suddenly and ripped off the buttons of his shirt. Chen Lian's eyes finally flashed with appreciation, and he sat back again and made a gesture of invitation to Zhang Beizi. Zhang Beizi's eyes were red and he bit his lips to prevent himself from crying. He took off his clothes one by one, then walked naked to the power switch and reached out to turn off all the lights. "Don't close it." Zhang Beizi's hand trembled when he pressed the switch, and then pressed it back. Chen Lian looked at Zhang Beizi, who turned around, raised his eyebrows and said, "The game is over, put on your clothes and go back." Hearing Chen Lian's words, Zhang Beizi felt as if he was stepped on the ground by Chen Lian, like a toy without thought and dignity. "I will let you be the finale of this fashion week, and I will call Zhou Xingqi to help you win that role." After Chen Lian finished speaking, he threw the clothes on the ground at Zhang Beizi's feet, then turned off the light and went to sleep. Zhang Beizi was never taken into consideration from beginning to end. In the darkness, Zhang Beizi's tears fell uncontrollably, dripping down her beautiful face on the soft carpet, and then disappeared without a trace. After several minutes, Chen Lian heard the sound of the door closing, then turned over and fell into a deep sleep. The next morning when Chen Lian was having breakfast in the restaurant, Li Shui came over carrying a box. "Teacher Chen, these are the prototypes sent by the company, there are 50 units in total." Chen Lian took a sip of milk and said, "Open it and take a look." Li Shui immediately opened the box and took out a small magic flute music player and placed it in front of Chen Lian. Chen Lian picked it up and looked at it carefully, then handed it to Li Shui and said, "Put them all away, repackage each one, and take them to Paris." Okay. Li Shui put away her things and carried the box away. After Chen Lian finished eating the last tomato, he just raised his head and saw Zhang Beizi standing in front of him. Chen Lian just glanced at it and then withdrew his gaze. At this time, Zhang Beizi turned back into the glamorous little beauty. Zhang Beizi plucked up the courage and said, "Teacher Chen, my friend in Xiangjiang said that Zhou Xingqi has already started interviewing the heroine." "I know." Chen Lian wiped his mouth, stood up, looked at her and said, "I said I would give it to you, and I will definitely give it to you." After saying that, Chen Lian left. Zhang Beizi looked at Chen Lian's back, suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, and laughed to himself. When she met Chen Lian on TVB a few months ago, she thought he was a very good person. It wasn't until last night that she realized that Chen Lian had always been a poisonous snake wearing a mask, and now he just took off the mask. Some of the people who have reached this position are good people. Zhang Beizi hated Chen Lian in his heart, but he also thanked Chen Lian for making him understand what the world was like. But she didn't dare to show the slightest bit of hatred in her heart, and she couldn't help but shudder when she thought about it. The look in Chen Lian's eyes last night was like a nightmare, and she didn't even dare to hate him. Chen Lian promised that what Zhang Beizi would do would be fulfilled. He called Mr. Tang and asked him to make an investment in Stephen Chow's movie, as long as he kept the role. As for how much money it would cost to retain the character Lu Piaopio, Chen Lian didn't care. The good show last night was worth a lot of money, and Chen Lian was willing to spend money to buy the tickets. I hope that Zhang Beizi can play the role of Lu Piaopio well in the future, otherwise Hong Kong movies will lose a classic. Update completed, go to sleep. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 394. Chapter 380-379. Aesthetic bombing from the East. Stop your expression. Don't laugh. You are models showing clothes, not yourself. Twist your hips. Pay attention to the amplitude of your arm swings. Don't take the catwalk. In a dance practice room in Paris, Song Huigui trained these models extremely strictly. Everyone's foundation was good, but they still lacked experience in modeling. It has been almost a week since I arrived in Paris. Chen Lian has not been here in the past few days. He has been attending various cocktail parties in Paris. During Paris Fashion Week, most of the world's celebrities gather here, which is a great opportunity. Chen Lian not only participated in the Fashion Week as a designer, but also had other tasks. Jifa also just came back from Tokyo these days and brought Wang Zuxian with him. Since Chen Lian does not want to spend too much time on the cultural industry in the future, this matter can only be done by Wang Zuxian and Jifa Lai together. Wang Zuxian is very famous in Asia but is basically a transparent person in Europe. Jifa brought her to Paris to enter the fashion circle. At the Givenchy brand reception, Jifa and Wang Zuxian sat next to Chen Lian, chatting quietly, not showing the slightest interest in the new products launched by Givenchy on the stage. Wang Zuxian was wearing an evening gown covered with diamonds. She sat there extremely dignified and asked Chen Lian in a low voice if he was planning to give up his previous plan. Chen Lian took a sip of wine, turned to look at Wang Zuxian and said, "No, my time is limited, it would be more appropriate for you and Jifa to do this. Without you, this brand would have no influence." Wang Zuxian felt that Chen Lian was no longer interested in this matter, so she wanted to let it go. Chen Lian shook his head and said, "I'm not quitting. I will continue to do some design. A brand cannot rely on just one person. Even Givenchy will need more fresh blood." "But isn't your work this time a collaboration with LV?" Wang Zuxian said in a low voice. Chen Lian took a sip of wine and said, "I was only invited by Bernard. As for the subsequent cooperation, it depends on the outcome of Jifa's discussion with him." Jifa interjected from the side, "There is no progress yet. Whether we can cooperate depends on whether this fashion show can be successful." "It will be successful. The fashion industry has been idle for a long time and needs something new," Chen Lian said confidently. "Hopefully it will be successful the day after tomorrow." Soon the promotion auction started. Chen Lian raised the card several times and took a necklace to give to Wang Zuxian and a bracelet to Jifa. Afterwards, the cocktail party became much more free. Chen Lian also picked up his glass and chatted with some people. The chief designer of Givenchy was the chief designer he wanted to meet. Givenchy's current chief designer is Alexander McQueen from the UK. He is also a rebellious and bold guy. He had a great time chatting with Chen Lian. He had heavy dark circles under his eyes and heavy makeup, making him look like a drug addict. This may actually be the case. Chen Lian chatted with him for a few words and gave him a magic flute music player with more than a dozen songs downloaded in it. Chen Lian handed him the beautifully wrapped box and said, "This is my gift to you. I hope you like it." "Let me guess, is it that music player? Its name has been resounding throughout Paris these days." Alexander McQueen couldn't wait to open the box. Chen Lian looked at him with a smile. In the past few days, he had given away more than 30 items, mostly to supermodels and designers in the fashion industry. These people will like these things more. Of course, Chen Lian did not let go of some of the celebrities he met. There are popular singers from the United States and some bands from the UK. These people all like this music player that is only the size of a matchbox and has a unique shape. Photos of these people wearing magic flutes and listening to music have appeared in Paris newspapers more than once in the past few days. Many people in the fashion circle are discussing the magic flute, which is a very interesting and even epoch-making product. While others still have a bulky guy hanging around their waists, they can hold a compact player. This is no less impactful than the replacement of mobile phones by mobile phones. Of course, the most important thing is that this thing has not officially come out yet. The first batch of products in the hands of these people are very memorable and prove that they are at the forefront of the trend. Magic Flute is not yet ready for mass production and will have to wait until next month. Moreover, the LNA format has not yet started to be promoted, and the related software has not yet been officially released. Chen Lian's approach is like a closed beta version before releasing a new phone, first to heat up the topic. By the end of September, Li Fujian will hold a press conference in New York, and those people who received gifts from Chen Lian will be invited to attend the press conference. As long as 1/3 or even 1/5 of the people go, it will be hot enough. If Chen Lian contributed more money, more people would go. It is not difficult to promote Magic Flute. What is difficult is to promote the LNA audio format. However, the plan is already there, but it is a bit dangerous. Li Fujian in the United States is very hesitant to promote according to the plan. If the operation is not good, he is likely to file a lawsuit because of this. Assuming that all popular songs on the internet are in LNA format and can be downloaded for free, will it be difficult for Magic Flute to promote it? Currently, songs are still in a very confusing stage regarding the copyright of their songs on the internet. It is easy to promote the music format and the Magic Flute by just making a sidestep. It's just that this will inevitably cause a lot of dissatisfaction among copyright owners. A lawsuit is inevitable, but it's hard to say whether they can win. Historically, the promotion of MP3 has done this kind of thing. The copyright owner filed an angry lawsuit and then unfortunately lost. Of course, Chen Lian would not foolishly take risks and bet that he could win the lawsuit. It would be best if he could obtain the authorization for the songs or cooperate with those copyright owners. But whether he can get authorization is still a question, which will test Li Fujian's ability. If you can get it, you don't have to do small tricks. Instead, you can directly set up a professional music website, catch up with the craze of the internet, and maybe get listed on Nasdaq to make a lot of money. Chen Lian really wants to thank this era. The internet bubble has been blown up so much that it would be great to ride on it. Li Fujian went according to plan in New York, and Chen Lian also diligently sent gifts in Paris. As for Fashion Week, Chen Lian doesn't care too much. As long as there are no problems with the models, there is nothing else to worry about. On the third day of Fashion Week, Chen Lian, who had watched the exhibition for 2 days, also appeared where the models were practicing. Today is their turn to take the stage. The girls are very nervous. It is the first time for most of the models to go abroad and the first time to come to such a big stage. Unlike the domestic Miss Universe competition, where they are their home and most worried about whether they will advance, in Paris they have too many worries. Wearing traditional Chinese clothing and displaying it in front of the world represents more than just an individual. Chen Lian brought a lot of coffee to these girls. It was impossible to eat, but they could still drink some coffee. Chen Lian's appearance gave the girls a lot of confidence. As a designer who never showed up, these girls were almost nervous to death. Chen Lian looked at the girls wearing only underwear. He was not in the mood to appreciate their beautiful figures. Instead, he gave them coffee and encouragement. When Chen Lian came to Zhang Beizi, he seriously warned, "You are the shortest in height. You are lucky to be able to enter the Miss Universe contest. I let you come this time. On the one hand, I want to go against tradition. On the other hand, I want to go against tradition. You have to fight for it yourself, but if you mess up, just be an ordinary person from now on." Zhang Beizi's hand holding the coffee shook. Unexpectedly, Chen Lian encouraged others, but was a threat to himself. It's so scary, isn't it? And what Chen Lian meant is that if he doesn't perform well, the promised heroine of the movie will be gone. Zhang Beizi held the coffee sent by Chen Lian like a hot potato, but now he can't throw it away, so he can only try his best. There is not much time left for the girls. There is no need to continue training today. They go directly to the backstage of the fashion week to start putting on makeup and getting ready. I still have to try out the T stage, and I don't have enough time. The effect Chen Lian wants is simple, mysterious, and beautiful, nothing more. The model's makeup is not required to be too heavy. The most important thing is not to squint your eyes. As for whether these foreigners can appreciate such a face that is not elegant, Chen Lian is too lazy to tolerate them. If you can't appreciate it, look for the reason within yourself. Soon the catwalk will officially begin. Chen Lian was backstage checking each girl's clothes. Whether the sleeves were neatly arranged and whether the length of the skirt was correct. Every detail had to be paid attention to. These girls have an advantage when walking on the catwalk. The biggest advantage is that they don't have to wear high heels, and they don't have to worry about falling. But Zhang Beizi's shoes are the most interesting. They have 2 layers of booster pads, which make hers less awkward. Although 1.7 meters is not the height of a model, Chen Lian likes it this way. Many of the models selected this time are not over 1.75 meters, and the most they can wear shoes is only 1.8 meters. Oriental aesthetics do not pursue height. Long legs are an advantage, but not the only one. When Chen Lian received the notice to prepare to go on stage, he clapped his hands vigorously, attracted the attention of all the girls, and said loudly, "Girls, don't be nervous. Remember, I am a humming saint of the devil's sect. She is the eldest lady of the noble family, the princess of the palace. She is here to open their eyes. Come on, girls, show yourselves to your heart's content and let these foreigners see what Oriental beauty is." After Chen Lian finished speaking, he immediately clapped his hands and led the models to the stage in order. When the music outside sounded, Chen Lian immediately asked the first girl to take the stage with elegant steps. "Model steps? Go to hell. If you imitate others, you will only fall into the inferior category. Only by being yourself can you have the chance to rise to the top." Many people around the catwalk are very interested in Chen Lian's fashion this time and want to see what kind of fashion this Chinese artist makes. Crossing borders often means failure. When all the lights dimmed, the music started, and the spotlight only illuminated the stage, a girl wearing an indigo meow costume appeared. The silver jewelry swaying on her head was particularly bright under the light. There is no smile on the model's cold handsome face, and the light comes from above, making the model look particularly mysterious, like a wizard in a legendary story. All the spectators around the T stage were attracted. A faint mist of dry ice surrounded the models, and an oriental mysterious atmosphere immediately appeared. When the model walked to the front of the catwalk, raised her arm and shook her wrist, the crisp sound from the silver jewelry was like a mysterious spell. All the viewers felt that this was not a model, but a wizard casting a spell on himself. Some people who have stereotypes about China almost couldn't sit still. This is a damn curse. The few people who come here are mostly social celebrities or wealthy people. They still have the basic quality and layout, and they can endure it and continue reading. Jifa and Wang Zuxian were also sitting in the audience. It was their first time to see the fashion designed by Chen Lian, and they were all deeply shocked. Jifa murmured, "It's so beautiful. Why doesn't anyone in your country wear it? Why do you want to imitate us?" Wang Zuxian looked at the models on the catwalk and didn't know how to answer. She also had this question in her heart: why is no one wearing such beautiful clothes? Soon the next model with a different style appeared again, and the attention of Wang Zuxian and Jifa was attracted. A Yi model wearing a black hat and a cape covering half of her shoulders walked onto the stage. With a mysterious sense of oppression, the floor-length cloak is like a wizard's robe, and he will wave the cloak at any time to release witchcraft. The audience on both sides of the catwalk has been deeply attracted. These clothes with different styles seem to have ancient magic that makes people unable to take their eyes away. The appearance of each model and the display of clothing made everyone hold their breath, fearing that this aesthetic feast would be ruined. There were fewer and fewer models backstage, until finally only Zhang Beizi was left. She looked at Chen Lian, hoping that he could give her some encouragement. Chen Lian just patted her shoulder lightly, but Zhang Beizi felt inexplicably at ease. Zhang Beizi took a deep breath and clasped her hands in front of her body. The white hanfu she wore gave her an elegant yet playful feeling, like a wealthy lady who had sneaked out of her home. The audience in the venue had eaten dozens of dishes and was very satisfied. When Zhang Beizi appeared, it was like taking a sip of refreshing tea after a big meal. Elegant, so elegant, without aesthetic fatigue or blind bombardment. The last hanfu was like a deer from the forest winking playfully at them, and looking back it seemed like it was carrying the fragrance of green grass and the morning dew under the early sun. When Zhang Beizi finished, everyone breathed a sigh of satisfaction. When all 56 models appeared again, everyone stood up and applauded wildly. This fashion week is the most special one in so many years. The bombardment from Eastern aesthetics allowed them to see more beauty and possibilities. Fringe artists in the entertainment industry. Author, Chizu de Xiaomao. Chapter 395. Chapter 381-380. Technology is also fashion. Jifa, who was off the catwalk, stared blankly at the models on the catwalk. Suddenly she excitedly grabbed Wang Zuxian's hand and said, "It's so beautiful. I thought that Chinese art was all about traditional ink painting. Now it seems that my vision is too broad, it's too small." Wang Zuxian smiled proudly, "This is the foundation of civilization." Chen Lian was sitting alone in the backstage smoking a cigarette at this time. He was supposed to go on stage, but he refused this traditional part. Just let them remember those beautiful clothes. It doesn't matter who the designer is. Moreover, Chen Lian is standing on the shoulders of countless predecessors and does not dare to stand there and accept praises. Chen Lian looked at himself in the makeup mirror and suddenly laughed because he heard the endless applause in front of him. "Huh, I've finally finished this. I'm debt-free and light-hearted." Chen Lian put on his headphones to listen to the song, humming the tune of the Knife Club Overture, and left the backstage with brisk steps. Chen Lian conquered Paris Fashion Week. To be precise, the ancient Oriental country conquered Paris Fashion Week. The next day's newspapers were full of comments about last night's fashion show, all praise, and the photos of the models also appeared in various newspapers and magazines. Now they have been invited to shoot fashion blockbusters, and several top fashion magazines in Europe have sent invitations. Some want to invite models to shoot photos, and some want to invite Chen Lian to be interviewed. Chen Lian agreed to all the invitations. The models had worked hard for so long and it was time to harvest. Chen Lian naturally had to take something away from Paris. The influence of the three major fashion magazines is very large, so Chen Lian naturally wanted to show off and bring the magic flute to an interview. "My source of inspiration, you ask?" They are all the foundation of traditional Chinese culture. Oh, by the way, I listen to music when I'm not inspired. What song is it? Of course it's traditional folk music. My music player is full of classic folk music, just like Western classical music. You can listen to it. What is this pretty little thing, you ask? Of course it is the latest invention of the mini music player, its name is the Magic Flute. Those magazines were also willing to give Chen Lian an opportunity to advertise. Anyway, it was just a sentence in the interview. What's more, this is a very beautiful fashion item. Many designers in Paris have used the Magic Flute to match many outfits. Fashionable items from the world of technology. It's full of fashion sense. Chen Lian's only regret is that the current battery is too hot, otherwise it would not be paired with in-ear headphones. Headphones would be more fashionable. After Chen Lian looked at the photos in the magazine and sighed for a while, he suddenly patted his forehead. Headphones are not useless. They consume a lot of power, so try to find ways to increase the power. Chen Lian immediately called China and asked them to work with the Institute of Acoustics to develop a headset. Music player plus earphones are two products. Magic Flute is not sold as a separate product. After adding fashion elements, Chen Lian can't believe that no one will buy it. People who pursue fashion are the most willing to spend money, and they will surely quickly open up the market among young people. After calling the domestic research laboratory, Chen Lian made another call to Li Fujian. With more products, the plan will naturally have to add a little more, and one more link will be added to the product launch conference next month. It's just that Li Fujian is very worried about production capacity. Modi's current production capacity is already very low. I suggest finding OEMs and adding headphones. On the day of the press conference, I'm worried that there will be too little stock. Chen Lian took the phone and smiled and said, "You are not worried about production capacity, but you are worried about whether hunger marketing is effective." Of course I'm worried about this. Now is the time to seize the market. Hungry marketing may not be a good way. Li Fujian looked at the latest news about Samsung that Li Yingxin asked him for, and reminded, Samsung has successfully developed it, although it will be slower than us, but it won't be too slow. Chen Lian said calmly, "Don't worry, you should know that Samsung doesn't pay much attention to this product, and the products they launch in a hurry will not be better than ours." Li Fujian thought for a while and said, "I hope so. Your funds must be in place as soon as possible. Once you start hunger marketing, you will need a lot of funds to continue to build momentum." Chen Lian hummed and said, "I know, the funds have been prepared. How are your discussions with those music copyrights going?" Speaking of this, Li Fujian's tone became much more relaxed, and he said with a smile, "It's going very well. The record era is almost over, and they are also thinking about more ways to make money. They are happy to license it to us. The website must be built as soon as possible, and the song inventory on the website must be improved. This is the key to us winning this battle." Li Fujian naturally understands this truth and is very concerned about this matter. She has already established an internet company in Silicon Valley. As for the research on the Magic Flute and headphones, naturally they will not be conducted in the United States, as it is simply too unsafe. After Li Fujian and Chen Lian made it clear about the website, they talked about their own affairs. "Lian, Samsung will not give me any support at the moment." Li Fujian sighed and said, "My father would rather I get married." Chen Lian asked without surprise, "What about your brother? What's his attitude?" Li Fujian smiled bitterly and said, "He is very happy, and even told me that I can ask him for help at any time, and even postpone the date of Sihan's release of MP3. Chen Lian was silent for a while and said, "Then just refuse." Li Fujian breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Thank you." Chen Lian smiled lightly and said, "You're welcome, this is the respect you deserve, but I hope you can appear in front of your brother as a winner." "I will. I will get back the respect I lost at Samsung and the equality I deserve. After Chen Lian and Li Fuzhen hung up the phone, they touched their chins and couldn't help but shook their heads. A young lady like Li Fuzhen would suffer such treatment. No wonder the Korean version evolved so quickly, almost to the point of going crazy. Teacher Chen, someone in China is looking for you. Li Shui suddenly knocked on the door and came in and said. Chen Lian touched his hot phone, threw it aside and asked, "Who is looking for me?" Li Shui said immediately, "Mr. Chen and Sister Gong Li are both looking for you, and Sister Dabai also asked you to call back as soon as possible. It's Lu Xiaoli's business." Chen Lian couldn't help but frown. Why were so many people suddenly looking for him? Did something happen? Chen Lian asked with a frown. Li Shui said helplessly, "They didn't say anything, they just asked you to call back as soon as possible." Chen Lian hummed and was about to call back. When he saw that Li Shui hadn't left yet, he asked, "Is there anything else?" Li Shui hesitated and said, "Mr. Chen, I heard from my sister that the company's funds seem to be tight." "Okay, I understand, you go ahead and do your work." Chen Lian waved his hand and asked Li Shui to go down. He took the phone and called Mei Chen. Mei Ren complained first, then complained about lovesickness, and finally said that the company had recently invested in too many movies and had no money. "I invested in 2 movies and several TV series in one go." Chen Lian didn't know what to say. He wanted to become a fat man in one go. Feng Xiaogong's movie, Zhang Wen's movie, the sequel to Return of the Pearl, the sequel to Kangxi, and several urban crime dramas. It's actually okay to invest so much. The most helpless thing for Chen Lian is that Chen Miren invested in Zhang Wen's Devil. This is a money-burning monster. It can burn through 480,000 rolls of film, and ordinary small investors can be directly dragged to death. However, Miren Chen has already paid part of the money, and Chen Lian doesn't bother to worry about it. It's just a small amount of money. Even if the movie loses money, several other dramas can still make it back. Chen Lian thought that this would be a good way to improve Chen Miren's memory. Not all investments would be smooth sailing. Chen Lian agreed to give Chen Miren 3 million from his personal pocket and hung up the phone. Then I called Gong Li back. Gong Li's routine was similar to that of Chen Miren, but what she said in the end was different. Gong Li sent a message on behalf of her ex-husband. Zhang Yumu wanted to make a movie with Chen Lian. Chen Lian suspected that Zhang Yumu, an old boy, wanted to find a place with him on the set. But it was indeed fun, and Chen Lian was quite interested, so he told Gong Li that he would wait until he returned to China to meet Zhang Yumu. In the end, Chen Lian called Li Dabai back and found out that it was Lu Xiaoli who found her after calling him several times without getting through. Lu Xiaoli is about to give birth. Li Dabai seemed a little angry, and his attitude on the phone was not that good. He felt that Chen Lian didn't care about Lu Xiaoli at all. Chen Lian knew what Li Dabai was angry about. It must be the same feeling among women. My condition is not good during this period. Ignore these. When is the due date? I will rush back. Li Dabai originally wanted to say a few words to Chen Lian on the other end of the phone, but when he thought about Bai Qing telling her that Chen Lian seemed to have some mental problem, he didn't dare to speak loudly. He just said in a low voice, "You can call her and ask her. Sister Xiaoli needs your phone number more than I do." After Li Dabai finished speaking, he hung up. Chen Lian couldn't help but rub his temples. He really wanted to scold himself for not being clear-headed before. He was too seriously affected by another personality before, and he was simply a big idiot. But things have reached this point, and Chen Lian can only accept it. What the hell is this? You are in your 20s and you already have 3 children, no, 4. If you are upset, go out and relax. When you feel better again, call Lu Xiaoli. Chen Lian took a car to Sophie Marceau's apartment, held Sophie Marceau in his arms and drank red wine, and the irritability in his heart gradually disappeared. Fortunately, Sophie Marceau missed that time, otherwise Chen Lian would be the father of 5 children. Sophie Marceau may have looked away and had no idea about the child, but she was still so entangled. He and Chen Lian hadn't even finished a glass of wine before they were already wrapped around Chen Lian like a snake. "My great designer, why can you design such beautiful clothes?" Sophie Marceau sat on Chen Lian, hugged his neck and said in a disgusted voice, "Can you design a set of beautiful clothes for me?" Chen Lian patted Sophie Marceau's butt and said, "Big designers charge very high fees. Are you prepared for the price?" Of course. Sophie Marceau kissed Chen Lian on the face, then jumped off him, ran into the room, took out a delicate little thing and handed it to Chen Lian and said, "Can you put it on for me?" Chen Lian looked at the little thing in his hand with a rhinestone on one end and a round metal head on the other, and said with a little interest, "I've already played with this, are there any others?" "Of course, come with me." Sophie Marceau took Chen Lian's hand and walked into the bedroom, then pointed to a hook on the ceiling and said, "I have already installed the things you asked me to install last time." Chen Lian looked at the hook on the ceiling, and now he was completely interested. He put his arms around Sophie Marceau's slim waist and said, "I am very satisfied with the price. Then let's get started. I'm looking forward to the flying ferry you mentioned. It must be very exciting." Chen Lian played with the small objects in his hands and decided to give her a small gold toy studded with real diamonds next time. Of course, roses with thorns are also indispensable. Roses are more popular than whips.